Ms. Longfellow to lead us to Health Canada.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Car ton bras c'est porter le pays, il c'est porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. We appreciate it once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum and delegation items this evening?
Yes, there are addendums to the meeting tonight. There are 11 registered delegates to be added to item 2 on the agenda, which is the public meeting regarding vandalism. Also, there is a road closure for the Niagara Falls Barrelman Triathlon event on September 16th. This will be added to item 6 of the agenda. The recommendation is in front of you, in front of all the council members, and it approves the road closure for Elm Street between Stonebridge Drive and Forks Road for 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
And item 2, I understand we're going to have that listed or dealt with. These are all the delegations as item number 7?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Main. Nice to have you back with us. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none indicated, you'll record that, Madam Clerk. Call for a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 17-18 held on August 27, 2018. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? In favor to my left? Carried. Okay. Well, we welcome, there's a large audience here this evening. We welcome you all to our City of Port Colborne Council meeting. I understand that probably most of our attendees tonight are here regarding the issue of vandalism in the downtown core. We will be discussing several items before we get to that part, and we ask you to be patient. We'll be quick, councillors. And while we finish the other business, we'll return to those who wish to make an oral intervention. Also, tonight's meeting is being webcast live and archived on the city's YouTube channel. So if you missed something, and you can go back and see it tomorrow or whenever. I'd also like to thank the media and the public for attending tonight's meeting. I just want to remind everyone of our rules, and there is, while someone is speaking, we don't like to have any type of discussion, and definitely no clapping at any point in the meeting. We have never had to do it yet, but if it got to the point where it was a little bit unruly, I'd call a 5-minute recess, and then hopefully everything would tone down. If not, I can call for the room to be vacated. And we certainly don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay. We have I moved down to item number 10, delegations. There's a maximum of 10 minutes each for those who have wished to appear as delegates. And the first one is Lori Elliott Leach, the Safety at Home Program Manager, and Darlene Upper, Snow Buddy Coordinator, Community Support Services of Niagara. Can you tell us about there's a little red button there, if you could push that, that's the microphone. Ladies? Yeah. Okay, you're set. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and you don't need to take it all.
Good evening. My name is Lori Elliott Leach, and this is Darlene Upper. We are from Community Support Services of Niagara. I am the Safety at Home Program Manager, and Darlene is the coordinator of the Snow Buddy program. And this evening we're here to talk to you about the Snow Buddy program and the importance of it within your community. Use this one. Oops. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Community Support Services is an agency that serves both seniors and adults with disabilities throughout the Niagara region. We're a nonprofit agency, and we're funded by the LIN, the Local Health Integrated Network. We have 3 offices, one in St. Catharines, one in Welland, and one in Beamsville. And many of our services are supported by volunteers. Why? Tonight we're here to talk about, excuse me, the Snow Buddies program. We provide multiple services in the community, transportation, volunteer visiting and phone chat, homemaking, home maintenance repair, Meals on Wheels, a lunch out, and we have several partnerships with other community agencies. Every 10 minutes, at least one senior visits an emergency department due to a fall. In Niagara, falls are the leading cause of injury related to hospital admissions, and in 2016, there were over 18,000 ED visits as a result of falls by seniors, and that's approximately $962 million in estimated annual cost for senior falls in Ontario. Oops. Okay. Most falls happen in seniors' homes. That's where seniors spend most of their time. The importance of the Snow Buddies program is seniors plus the Leaf and Snow Buddy program will equal healthier, safer, and stronger seniors in our community. Oh, there we go. The Safety at Home program is a program that promotes independence and mobility in seniors. It is a free individualized visit with referrals. It provides the Snow Buddy program. We provide subsidy for seniors who can't afford certain assistive devices. We make suggestions on home modifications, and we provide a brokered worker maintenance program who will do some of the work around the home.
Good evening. My name is Darlene, and I am the Leaf and Snow Buddies coordinator.
We're way too far ahead. That's it, the guy.
Our clients are seniors living in our community, and most of them have health issues, and they're just not able to shovel their driveway. A lot of their kids live out of town, so it's a big burden upon them. Most of them have fixed incomes, so they can't afford to have this service paid for. So with the Snow Buddies program, what I try and do is get volunteers to come and shovel them out. It's a very important for the seniors. It allows them to get to their doctor's appointments. It allows them to get out and do their groceries. It allows other important services to come into their home to allow them to stay living at home. We also have the Leaf Buddies program, which is the start of the Snow Buddies program. It's a way for the volunteers to introduce themselves and build that relationship with the senior. It helps prevent falls. It's a way for the students to get even more volunteer hours throughout the year. And because I am the coordinator and I speak with the clients and I speak with the students, it has a tremendous impact on both of them. Our seniors are so grateful for the service because it's one less stress that they have to worry about. And the same with the Snow Buddies program, it's free. Most people want it to be free because they just can't afford it. The program started in 2009, and with the program starting, we have developed partnerships with Port Colborne, Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, Fort Erie, along with both the school boards. In 2011, the Snow Buddies program was awarded the Safe Communities Award. We are also on Facebook, Twitter. I do my best to get in the newspaper and on radio just to get the word out because there is a shortage of volunteers.
When the program first started, all of the municipalities were very helpful in providing and very supportive in providing funding so we could provide all the new Snow Buddies with toques. The toques all say Snow Buddies on one side and whichever city they're working from on the other side. So we're able to give that to them when they start so they can keep their heads warm. And what we are asking of you today is to continue to be supportive of the Snow Buddies program. Any way you can get out in the community that volunteers are needed. We have no volunteers in the Port Colborne area right now. There's approximately 12
clients in need, and I had a whole lot of hang-ups because they were quite upset that I didn't have any volunteers last year.
So it's a needy area, and for whatever reason, Port Colborne was a champion partner at the beginning, and we had a lot of volunteers, and it seemed to have dropped off for some reason over the years, and I'm not sure why. Encouraging students to volunteer with the Leaf and Snow Buddy program, perhaps putting it to the senior advisory committee of the need that's out there, and just getting the word out in your community that there is this service out there, and that there are a lot of seniors in this community that are in need of assistance. And I believe that is it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
If you can just hold on 2 secs. There may be questions of council.
Yeah.
Are there any questions on my right? Councillor Demeray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I do sit on the Seniors Advisory Committee, and it is something that has been recently discussed, and possibly our staff liaison, Deb Rollo, might speak to it. Would you be willing to address them, Deb? Thank you.
So I think, as we mentioned, we brought this up as an issue at the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we recently did a strategic plan. And this was one area of our focus. I think, as mentioned, removal of snow and leaves, well, more so snow, is very important to help an older adult remain at home. If they can't get out to get what they need or get services brought in, it does become an issue. So I think, as a committee, we took on the role of supporting this in helping raise awareness and in the fact that we do need more volunteers. And something actually, Lori, maybe you could touch on as well is I believe there is the opportunity for brokered workers. So if they're not eligible for this program, or that there's no volunteers, that you do have brokered workers that do provide snow removal.
So we do offer, if we don't have any volunteers to assist, we have our home maintenance program, which I spoke of earlier, and those are paid workers. Excuse me, they do charge a fee, but it is a reduced rate, and we will offer that service to them as well if there's no volunteers in their area. We do match geographically, so there does need to be a volunteer in their area, so it's easier for them to get to the senior, but we will offer the brokered worker program to them as well. The other thing I'd like to say too is they don't have to be students. The majority of the volunteers are students because they do it for their community service hours, but we will take adults as well. We do have a few adults, I think, a few adult volunteers throughout the region as well. So,
Thank you. On my left, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the presenters. Just a couple of quick questions. Are there any limitations, be it physical or age, on a requirement to apply for the program?
No. Generally, we say 60, but I've had people below 60 who have medical conditions for whatever reason, and they're unable to shovel. So we kind of adapt to that, and depending on if they're like 50 and they have some type of physical limitation, then we'll put them on the list as well. Okay. Generally, it is for seniors, but that's primarily who it is, and that's the majority of our clients are seniors.
And from the other side of the coin, for volunteers, is there an application that they have to go through in a screening process, or do you just kind of take whatever volunteers come forward?
So for students, there is an application. There's an application both for students and the seniors. So for students, everything is on our website. They can either print it off. Darlene also drops off packages to all the high schools, so they're in the schools as well. So what happens is the volunteers fill out an application, it comes in, and then we run an orientation for the volunteers that are under 18. For anybody 18 and over, they would have to go through a screening process, interview, police check, that kind of thing, for sure, if they're over 18.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, Councillor Butters?
Thank you, sir. To the presenter, do you have like some kind of working relationship directly with the high schools, the principals, the VPs, and in a way access in?
We've done presentations to both the boards over the years, and to guidance and that kind of thing. We drop, schools are very well aware of the program. We drop information off to all the high schools throughout the Niagara region, what they do with that information. And shoveling snow is a tough sell. A lot of kids don't want to do it, so we have to try and entice them best we can by having prizes and year-end party and things like that, things we give away. But yeah, we strive to have a working relationship with the schools best we can.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate your attendance and appreciate the cause that you represent. Our next delegation this evening is Mr. Vic Kerschel. Vic is the chair of the board of directors of the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara Foundation, and it's regarding the 2018 Coffee Break campaign. Mr. Kerschel, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Maloney. I appreciate the opportunity to address you again this evening, although I am somewhat inhibited by a frog or something I have developed in my throat, so you'll have to bear with me. In any case, I'm very pleased to be back again to let you, as the council and the citizens of Port Colborne, know about our 23rd coffee break program for the Alzheimer's Society of Niagara, the foundation, which is one of our main fundraising programs. The program, the coffee break program, actually was initiated here in Niagara, but is now spread all over Canada. So there'll be some 10,000 coffee break events going on over the next few months to raise money for Alzheimer awareness and support. Our kickoff here for Niagara will occur on the 20th of September at the Meridian offices in St. Catharines. Wade Stacer, who is the Vice President of Meridian, has agreed to be our support person and our main sponsor this year, so we're very pleased with that. And following that, of course, we will be addressing various councils, such as yourself, to try and get support and have presentations made and raise awareness and funding for Alzheimer's. You all know Alzheimer's is a very insidious disease. Currently, we estimate there are some 500,000 people in Canada who are suffering from Alzheimer's, and that is expected. It's increasing very rapidly. That's expected to almost double by 2030 to close to 1 million people. So here in Niagara, there are approximately 10,000 people suffering from Alzheimer's. That's just the actual patients who are suffering from the Alzheimer's. And we at the Alzheimer's Society attempt to provide support services not only for those people who have been identified as having early and more severe forms of dementia, but also their caregivers, their family members who are obviously equally or often more affected than the general public. So it's a very important program and services we provide in Niagara for Alzheimer's patients. So what we have done in the past is to provide these kinds of services funding over and above the limited funding that's provided to us by the provincial government. We have to raise approximately $500,000 per year to fund these support services that we provide for Alzheimer's patients and their caregivers. Obviously, that is a challenging effort required on our part. This particular program, which is one of our main fundraisers, the Coffee Break program, raises, we hope, again, we raised $70,000 towards that $500,000 goal last year, and we hope to be able to exceed that this year. Now, excuse me, the City of Port Colborne and Council has been very supportive in the past, and we are hoping for your continued support. I understand that on National Alzheimer's Day, the 21st of September, your staff has already organized a coffee break at the market, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? And are you doing that? So we're really pleased that we're getting continued support from the City of Port Colborne and its residents. I want to also mention that the Coffee Break program is available to anyone, businesses, a group of friends, associations. We provide the startup host package. I have to show Meridian because they're our sponsors this year. So, but they've been very good. And our staff in St. Catharines will come out and assist anyone who's interested in setting up a coffee break program. So with that, you have most of the other details that I submitted. I'm cutting it short because I'm not able to converse as fluently as I like to do, but I do want to thank the City of Port Colborne and the staff for their past support and urge anyone in the audience and in the greater public to get engaged in having one of our coffee break programs. So I have a package here that I'd like to leave with you. I traditionally leave it with you.
Perhaps you could present that to Mrs. Rollo and
I assume that you're
a member from the Seniors Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. So you're going to be looking after our...
Maybe I can just touch on
Yes, would please.
So Val and myself, yes, I am the staff member. I'm the Health Services Coordinator. But Val, as part of the Seniors Advisory Committee, had determined, along with the rest of the committee, that this was an important initiative to support. We know, as Port Colborne has one of the highest senior populations in the region, that we have a large amount of individuals, suffering dementia. And in fact, we noted that when we were out in June during Seniors Month at the marketplace, we received a lot of inquiries about Alzheimer's Society. So this event, yes, we're hosting on World Alzheimer's Awareness Day. We will have a staff member from Alzheimer's there to field any questions from individuals who are popping in to have a coffee. And we're also going to be promoting the memory clinic that's here in Port Colborne. If you don't know about that, what it is it's a multifaceted kind of evaluation that is provided through Mapleview Clinic. It runs once a month, and it helps to do the early onset diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So we are very pleased as a group to support this.
I'm very, very thankful for your support, so thank you again.
If we could just see if there are any questions of members of council. On my right, does anyone have a question? On my left? There being none, thank you very much, Mr. Crucial.
Thank you, and thank you for your support again.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda would be item number 7, determination of items requiring separate discussion. Members of council? Mr. Elliott?
I think everybody's here for item 2.
Okay. Anyone else? Now I call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, second by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Carried. mayor's report, I have just one item because of trying to reduce our time, and that is with our fire chief. Is our fire chief here? Could he come forward, please? Perhaps he's in the washroom.
Sorry. Checking. I was checking the fire safety plan.
Our fire chief has received, our fire chief Thomas B. Cartwright is the recipient of the Ontario Municipal Fire Prevention Officers Association Fire Chief of the Year Award, and it was presented to him last Windsor, in Windsor last week. This award recognizes the significant contribution made by a fire chief to the prevention of fire and public education to the community. Since the fatal fire on December 14, 2016, Chief Cartwright has been a strong voice in the province, advocating that fire services have to change to a proactive approach to fire safety within the spotlight on prevention. Chief Cartwright has prescribed that all members of the Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Service increase prevention activities with multiple initiatives, including a joint promotion on public education in the Niagara region. Our sincere congratulations go out to you, Chief. Job well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you to everybody else in the room. I appreciate it very much. I certainly haven't done this myself. It's been with the cooperation of council and certainly my staff, and including our volunteer firefighters who have stepped up on Tuesday nights and elsewhere throughout the community. Our full-time staff are doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our goal is to have no fires, which fits well, not so well into what council passed last week with regards to billing for insurance companies, but quite frankly, we'd like to think we will never collect $1. That's our goal. And we're going to continue with these efforts with council support. And I'd also like to say to the community, those in particular that have offered financial support to us, we very much appreciate it, including the phone calls, pats on the back, and the support we've got in general from the community as a whole. Our CAO has been very helpful and give us a direction and some forethought with regards to budgeting items and things of that nature, which we've much appreciated. But I think the biggest thing is the city does need to know that our statistics are going up. We're up to in around 40% now versus the 24, 23% we were a year ago. So we're moving in the right direction, but our goal is to get a 100% cooperation with regards to working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. So thank you very much for this effort, this pat in the back, but it's not just me, it's our people that we work with throughout the community and also throughout the region. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. At this time, I'd call upon item number 12, our Regional Council's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be brief. I know that many folks are here for another item, but I did want to speak a little bit about the 2015 to 2018 term in review document, Council Strategic Priority Projects, which has been released by the Niagara region to discuss the update of all the projects the region's been working on for the last 4 years. It is available online at the region's website. Some of the things that are in there, Mr. Mayor, as you know, are listing our strategic priorities and specific projects. I'm going to go through some of them just to let people know what's going on, and of course for more information they can get the document themselves. One of the strategic priorities is moving people and goods. Particular projects within that the council has achieved is provincial commitment to GO Rail expansion, mobility hub study completed, transportation master plan completed, and as this council knows, triple majority support for the region's role in facilitating intermunicipal transit. Another strategic priority, Mayor, is investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Particular projects in that have been achieved is an expedited process for all development with accelerated stream for projects on all major economic developments, influencing major provincial planning reviews such as the Greenbelt Act, as well as Joint Economic Development Action Plan. Another strategic priority is labor-ready workforce. Particular projects there is addressing the Ontario Works caseloads, increasing mental health funding, increasing homelessness funding, and a joint strategy on youth retention developed with post-secondary institutions. Another strategic priority is positioning Niagara globally. Those particular projects include a strategy to improve Niagara's global attractiveness, as well as the federal commitment to a foreign trade zone in Niagara. Another strategic priority is doing business differently. We used to have Niagara Week where we'd go to Queen's Park once a year. Now the strategy is Niagara Week is every week, and we're in constant communication with our provincial and federal partners. We've identified $1 billion in assets to be options for alternative service delivery. We have new revenue generation, and we've been completing several external value for money audits. Finally, organizational excellence. We've got a new integrated customer service model, enhanced financial management system, which has realized savings, and an ongoing focus on continuous improvement. So, Mayor, as you know, there's incredible detail in here that provides much more information to the public in terms of where your tax dollars are going, some of the achievements on a project basis that the region is achieving. I'm going to leave it at that, and people can access that information. I do know that there are folks here as well today to discuss issues with vandalism and other things with respect to the police and the police services. Many may know that I sit on the police services board. There is information with respect to a specific District 6 update, which I'll leave in the back for additional information. I know our staff sergeant is here today, Rob LaPlante. He'll be speaking, as well as Deputy Chief Police Brett Flynn. So I'm happy they're here. I don't speak on behalf of the Police Services Board, but I am here today to listen to all of the concerns, bring any of your concerns back to the Police Services Board over the next few months anyway. And I can tell you that the Police Service and the Police Services Board take District 6 and this community very seriously. They have committed to keeping this police station open this term of council. The Police Services Board has held a meeting here in Port Colborne, the Port Colborne Council Chambers, the first meeting they've held outside of their own board offices. They've provided a donation to the East Village Action Committee. They have initiated what's called Port All Initiative, which aims to work with community partners to stop high-risk offenders from committing crimes before they happen. So the Police Services Board is very engaged in this community, and I'm happy that there's a dialogue today. I'm happy the police service members are here to speak to it. I will remain available to answer any questions from a police board level, but primarily I am here to listen to you for the balance of the meeting. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Questions of Mr. Barrick? There are none. Thank you, Mr. Barrick.
Thank you.
Councilor's items number 13. Are there any items, Councillor Butters?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have two, and the one is in regards to ongoing issues with parking at Pleasant Beach. There has been a request to increase the no parking areas in the Pleasant Beach at the end there. There is a restaurant down there that is now closed. They no longer need any parking. I've talked to the lady myself today, and she would be fine to have that no parking extended. So I would like to see if we could move forward that with staff and see if we can come up with some kind of a plan going forward to increase the no parking area in that Pleasant Beach and near the lake. As well, the reports back from the residents say like the tollway zones have been very effective. If we can increase that area to encompass more, it probably will relieve more congestion. In conjunction with that, I would like to see if we can look at the signage issue, which I don't think we have the signs up directing people away from those beaches to the beaches that we actually want them at, which is Nickel Beach and Centennial Beach. It could be possible, and maybe it's even preferable to maybe look at signs on Highway 3 like a Todco sign that I know costs money, but it's large and maybe it would be even more effective getting people where we want them to be. So I would like to put that forward and see if we can have staff come back with some recommendations on that, and maybe Mr. Louis could jump in if he has some thoughts on this.
Is there any comments from either Mr. Lee or?
To you, Mr. Mayor, and the members of council. At this time, no. With regards to the other signage, there's been a great deal of discussion with regards to Todd signs and making those signs visible to the public in general so that they get directed to the actual public beach accesses. And we will continue to work within the departments and the staff to work at making that happen.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Butters?
Can I get some kind of like timelines on this? Because I don't want this just kind of like lulling on forever and a day, because it's been probably it's been a year and a half to 2 years looking at that kind of signage to get folks to the beach where beaches that we want them and away from the areas that we really don't want them. So can we get some times on that?
Mr. Louie, can you address this?
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Butters, we staff are well aware of the issues getting people directed to the beaches that we want them to be directed to, specifically Centennial and Nickel. We have worked a little bit on it. In fact, right after the last time you mentioned it, I think it actually was, we worked on a social media campaign, Facebook and Twitter, designed to get people driving to the right beach before they're driving down Pleasant Beach Road. A sign on Pleasant Beach Road is one thing that we can do, and there is a small sign there. It's kind of a, if you blink it, you will miss it sign. But we want to run a campaign that gets people to the right place. One of the problems that we're up against is sign overload. I think there's a sign for everything on every corner in Port Colborne, and it sometimes means that signs get lost. But what we want to do, we're on the verge of tendering a recreation master plan. It's going to tell us what recreation facilities, including beaches, should get the attention that they need, whether it's budget attention, human resources attention, signage, and marketing. And at that time, I'd like to maybe take another good hard look at the Todd signs, that's MTO signs, as well as other signs in town, wayfinding signs to get people where we want them to be. I've also been speaking to a corporate entity in Port Colborne about possibly sponsoring some community beautification projects and investing some private sector dollars into our recreation facilities to try to get better use, let's call it. So I think we should try to, I can't promise a time, I think we should try to integrate this with the recreation master plan, if that's okay, and have something in place for next summer when this starts all over again.
Just one question I have for you, Mrs. Butters. Is that restaurant, is that closed for the season? She's just continuing business, okay.
Yes, they're going to do something different there, and I think they want to actually have a residence there. So they're going to be working with our staff on that, and there won't be a restaurant there anymore.
Thank you. And you had 2 items, is that, have we covered both those items?
The second one is, I know, sir, that you went to a meeting with the MPCA, and I realized that it was in camera, but I wondered if there was any information that you could give us on an update in regards to that meeting in the Auditor General.
Yes, I attended most of the day at the MBCA meeting with the Auditor General, but it was in closed doors, and as a consequence, I can't make reference to anything that what transpired, other than we anticipate the full report will be released shortly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Demery.
Councillor Demery, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had your hand up.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 items, both concerning road safety. I'm wondering about the possibility of a traffic study. We've talked about this before, and both the items I'm going to bring up, I've said multiple times here. But again, Chippewa Road and Berkeley, that intersection where the stop sign is, again, I've out knocking on doors, I'm hearing a lot about the neighbors in the area not being happy with the way that's working out. I brought that to our attention before. Would really like to have our staff get out and take a look. Apparently the configuration of the stop signs are not even compliant with the provincial rules. So we could possibly get that done, get somebody to take a look at that and look at intersection safety on that one.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Demery. Yes, we can do that. We'll have conversations between engineering and operations and bylaw to see what's required to take us to the next level. There's some initial study work that was done, we'll re-examine that and see what the merits are of not having a stop sign versus it being there.
Okay, thank you. And that's the first one. Again, and I brought this up, this has been up several times, both Councillor Doucette and I have brought it forward. We've had it in front of council and we're not successful for this, but school is back in. Twice in this past week, I've seen 2 near accidents at the corner of Elizabeth and Kalali Street East. And both times, someone going south on Elizabeth, turning right onto Kalali Street East, right into a car that was coming along Kalali Street East, going westward. So there's a problem at this intersection. And we want to keep ignoring it, that's fine, but you know, somebody's going to get hurt. So again, please, could we take a look at putting some kind of traffic study in place, doing something? I mean, you know, the problem's not going away, it's continuing. Do we want to wait and say I'm sorry? I'd rather not do that.
Mr. Lowe, you have a comment?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Demery, I believe that this intersection, while there may be a safety concern there, was the subject of a previous decision of council, which was a decision not to proceed with a 4-way stop, and a decision of that type would have to be treated as a reconsideration of a previous decision of council, or I believe be considered by the next council. So for that reason, I don't think it's so much an engineering question as it is a procedural question that should probably be directed to the clerk.
Okay, actually, I wasn't asking for council to make any decision. I was asking for staff to take a look at safety measures around this and possibly add it to a traffic study that may or may not happen. I would hope that it would, though. So we have discussed it in the past.
Through your worship.
It's not about getting rid of this or putting the stop sign.
Sure. So I don't, through your worship to Councillor Demery, I feel like it's going to get myself in trouble, but we wouldn't do that because council directed us to not do that. So a decision of council, albeit a close one, would be final as far as staff is concerned, and we would not spend the money or explore a safety improvement or a study unless council reversed that decision and said, go ahead and do that.
Okay, thank you. I read it completely differently. I wasn't asking for the stop sign to be added this time. I was asking for us to take a look at the safety of the intersection, but that's fine. I've done what I needed to do.
Thank you, Mrs. Demery. Any other council comments? You're good? Okay. Are there any staff responses to previous councillor inquiries? There being none, we move on to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. I ask Mr. Elliott to move the recommendation, and then we will address the delegation to the meeting on that issue. Go ahead, Mr. Elliott.
Sure, just to have a public meeting to discuss vandalism in downtown Port Colborne.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Demery. Okay, all those in favor? Nope. Oh, we want to hear the delegates first. Okay. Our first delegate this evening is Staff Sergeant Rob LaPlante. He's Staff Sergeant at the Port Colborne Detachment, and Deputy Chief Brett Flynn.
Mr. Mayor.
Just hit the mic, red button.
Thank you. Kinders. Through me, you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Councilors, CAO Louis, City staff, business owners, residents of Port Colborne. For those who don't know me, my name is Staff Sergeant Rob LaPlante. I'm currently the 6th District District Commander here in Port Colborne. I've been here since April 2018. As a district commander, one of my primary responsibilities is to provide a liaison between officers and the community to ensure the concerns brought forward by individual citizens, citizens committees, or municipal council members are identified and an appropriate police response is generated. I welcome the opportunity tonight to attend tonight's meeting for two reasons. We, the police service, strive on a daily basis to make the city of Port Colborne a safe place to live. And with your input tonight and in the future, we can implement operational solutions to make the city an even safer place to reside and visit. I also wanted to take this opportunity to showcase what our service offers the residents of Port Colborne. In addition to the crime preventative tips for everyone here to consider. I look forward to working with everybody in collaboration with the appropriate stakeholders to address all of your concerns. Let's start with our slides. So just a few areas I'd like to cover tonight. 6th District, who are we? Give you a little background on our district zones, as well as our, what we do here in 6th District, as well as what NRPS resources we have available to our district here and to you residents here in Port Colborne. I'll offer some 6th District statistics, just give you some high-level numbers, and in the end I'll wrap it up with some just some crime prevention tips that you can take back to you and implement if you so choose. So, as you may be aware, the officers assigned to 6th District provide front line policing to not only Port Colborne but Wainfleet as well. Population combined, we're looking at about 24,000, 18 in Port and Wainfleet, with an average of 2 million visitors annually. And these are from the Census Canada and your Port Colborne business economic development. So we've got 3 zones broken down in here in Port Colborne. 630 zone is basically Wainfleet, and it operates, it's the 2nd largest patrol district in the region. Okay, from 6th District here on 501 Fielding to the furthest output in Wainfleet is roughly 30 kilometers. So I'll give you an idea of driving time. Okay, the zone runs from Welland, the Welland River on the north side, to the boundaries on the west side, and obviously the lake, and then it goes over to Hewitt Road East as the boundary. We get into 610 zone, which essentially is concentrated in a downtown core. It includes Town Line Road to the north, the Welland Canal to the east, and then we go into 620 zone, which again is the Welland Canal to the west, Town Line Tunnel, and Holloway Bay Road East is our boundary. So that incorporates all of our areas of responsibility here for Port Colborne. Uniform members' efforts include both proactive initiatives to address concerns, usually identified by the community, as well as reactive responses to a wide variety of calls, including priority response to in-progress incidents. Calls for service involve complaints such as criminal acts, as well as non-criminal behavior, such as motor vehicle collisions, interventions for individuals experiencing mental health episodes, as well as trespassing, hunting complaints, and we offer assistance to outside agencies such as municipal bylaw, as well as fire services. We do conduct initiatives throughout the year at 6th District. Those include, but not limited to, targeted enforcement. So we receive complaints from the city as well as public complaints, and we can enforce certain areas within the boundaries, as well as we run ATV patrols as opportunities permit, as well as community engagement patrol, which essentially is foot patrols. So those are running year-round, right from January right through until December. So Although you may not see an officer walking on a snow-covered night, you may find them inside, perhaps doing at the Vale Center or other local businesses such as the library or the Vale Center. So. 6th District incorporates a large number of events throughout the year, both in Wainfleet and Port Colborne. Our office continues to develop an appropriate response to each individual event. Such examples, obviously, this year's Canal Days. Past examples would have been Beach Day. We held on June 1st. We worked in conjunction with Fort Erie office to cover all the local beaches, both in Wainfleet, Port Colborne, and Fort Erie, as well as we reach out to Wainfleet on occasion to do the upcoming Safety Day and their bike rodeo coming up in October. So these are just some of the 2018 and past examples. I know Regional Councillor Barrick mentioned Port Hall, and I'd just like to expand a little bit on that because I certainly want to highlight the ongoing partnerships the police service have with several community agencies. We all work together to enhance your community safety as well as the residents' well-being. So just to recap, what is Port Hall? In 2018 in February, the Niagara Regional Police, along with 11 agencies, representing a variety of human services sectors, launched Port Hall, a collaborative initiative designed to assist persons in the community. Port Hall represents the ever-growing trend in Ontario known as situation tables. These tables provide a multi-agency response for rapid intervention strategies to assist persons who are experiencing an acutely elevated risk of harm. In 2011, the situation table known as the Hub was initiated in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan to provide a multi-agency proactive approach focusing on crime prevention, social wellness, and community safety. With positive results witnessed from the Prince Albert Hub, communities throughout Ontario began recognizing the benefits associated with the unique collaborative response. With over 50 tables currently operating through Ontario, Port Hall represents the first situation table in Niagara. Port Colborne is the only community right now that has a situation table. That's why it's worth noting that it's very, very beneficial, and I'll go through some of the strong points that it does offer. Port Hall became operational with the launch of its first meeting February 2018 and continues to meet on a weekly basis. During Port Hall meetings, representatives from participating agencies are invited to bring forward persons who may be experiencing acutely elevated risk of harm for discussion amongst the group. Once a determination has been made that the risk of harm is present, the agencies of Port Hall in the best position to offer assistance in the intervention strategy do a collaborative response in a coordinated effort to reduce those risks identified. Operating for slightly less than 7 months, I can say that as being the chair on the Port Hall Committee, we've been operating seven months now. We've had 34 cases that have been forward. That's your local residents within the community of Port Colborne that we've been able to help in some way, form, or another. And I say we, I mean collectively as a group. And I'll identify those agencies that are involved. Okay. So currently, Port Hall consists of representatives from the following services, as you can see up here on the board: the Niagara Regional Police, Port Cares, Bridges, Community Health, Community Living, and Port Colborne and Wainfleet Gateway Residential, Community Support Services of Niagara, Canadian Mental Health Association, Pathstones Mental Health, City of Port Colborne Bylaw, Regional Municipality of Niagara, Community Health, excuse me, Community Addiction Services of Niagara, Contact Niagara, The Raft, and Fax Niagara. So there's quite a broad spectrum of agencies here to assist these individuals within your community. And again, we meet on a weekly basis every Tuesday, and the cases are brought forward, and they're dealt with within 48 hours of being identified as experiencing acutely elevated risk. So these agencies involved are looking forward to the benefits to providing community safety and the well-being for all residents of Port Colborne. It's expected that additional agencies will become involved as the year progresses, and they will be able to provide assistance to the members of the community who are experiencing these crises. In addition to Port All, your local high schools, the service has identified a SRO officer and has an officer assigned to the Lakeshore Catholic High School as well as the Port Colborne High School. So their specific mandate is to provide in-class and school presentations as important ways to allow students to ask questions regarding career opportunities if they're interested in policing, as well as past and present concerns regarding the law. In addition, they provide help to local students in the area of development. They also can implement crime preventative initiatives through the school system. And these are located across the region. So all your local high schools across the region have SROs assigned to them. So although 6th District does not have a criminal investigation branch, we do use the resources of 3 District, which operates out of Welland. There are 2 types of investigative units that we have access to. One being general assignments. Basically, they would handle anything from a theft under right up to an attempt murder. So as uniform officers take a frontline call, if the call requires extensive follow-up, it could be referred to the investigative branch for follow-up. So although you may be reporting to the frontline officer, at the end of the day, it may be a detective that might be following it up if it meets their criteria or their mandate. As well as we have a street crime unit operating on a Welland who spends a significant time out here in Port Colborne as well. And they deal with street level drug investigations, break-and enters, and other street level crimes. So in addition to the detective office in Welland, we have a number of investigative and supporting units at the NRP. And these are all available to our officers here in 6th District to investigate crimes should they occur here. Just some more for you. I'll just jump a little bit into statistics. We pulled the last 3 years, and this is just a high-level account. We tried to highlight some of the more important ones, or not that they're not all important, but just a general overview. If you see our B&E numbers are trending, if you're into the trending forecasting model, that generally I think at the end of the year we should be lower. Same with assaults, homicides. They're hit and miss. We're obviously trending lower. It's not too often that those happen. Robberies is the same, although we're on par. This is just one of those things you can't predict in the world of policing. Mischief under and over. We are trending, it appears to be a little bit high, but that being said, when you look at the zone coverage, this is 6th District as a whole. It doesn't break down into zones, and I'll break it down in the next slide to show you where the breakdown is. So this is just an overview of 6th District in general. Noise complaints, we have 2 numbers there. 81 for 2018 would have been the calls that we have received for a noise complaint. 5 is the number of reports that were authored as a result of those noise complaints. Not too often we do reports for a noise complaint. It's only if it's warranted. Generally it's turned down the radio and we're on our way, and that's all we need to do. And motor vehicle collisions, again, we're trending on the lower side in comparison to 16 and 17. So we broke down statistics in zones. And again, whoops, sorry. If we look at 2018, being this meeting is highlighting in the area of vandalism. If we go into specifically the downtown core, which 610 zone would incorporate, we're running at 35. And again, if you look at 17, 39, and 46 in 2016. 2018 is till August the 30th. If you do a forecast, yes, we are trending a little bit higher, but on average, historically, crime levels out. Generally, our summertime is our busy season, and when we start getting into the fall, the calls for service go down as well as the reports of crime. Historically, all the incidents generally level out and they're consistent over the years. If we would have got stats going back to 15 and 14, generally they're within 5 or 6, although we do experience some spikes at different times of the year. So I just wanted to take this opportunity as well to just discuss some crime prevention tips. It's not too often I get a full room to speak in front of, as you can probably tell. So I'll capitalize on this opportunity. So take it for what it's worth. It's just suggestions. By no means is this guaranteeing you to be crime-free. These are just little steps you can take to get the individual to move on to the next person. And if we keep doing that on to the next person, eventually they're going to run out of places to go and they'll leave the area or they'll just not do it. So take this for what it's worth. We have a Lock It and Lose It campaign. We generally run in the fall, usually around Christmas time, because shoppers tend to leave their stuff in their cars at plazas when they're going around shopping. So just a little initiative that we run service-wide, and just a reminder, obviously the key points are up there, is always lock your car, take the keys with you. We shouldn't have to say leave your children, avoid leaving your children in the car, but it does happen, and it continues to happen, but a gentle reminder that is not acceptable. Don't leave your vehicle running. A lot of this seems common sense, but yet we run into a habit of and some bad habits actually, and we don't do it. So if you get yourself into a regular routine and follow these simple guidelines, hopefully you won't become a statistic. Just want to discuss a little bit about home security and target hardening. Basically, this can be applied to residents as well as businesses. If you do have a business, again, there's no guarantee in anything you can implement, but it's certainly, if you take small steps, it could help you. Just some general observations, and again, these seem like common sense, but sometimes bad habits are hard to break, so just a gentle reminder. Simple things like arranging for mail pickup, cutting or removing snow, cutting the grass, talk to your neighbors. Tell them when you're going to be away, when you're going to return, and who should be there or shouldn't be there. Consider a house sitter. Obviously, lock all doors and windows when away. Seems like common sense, but it does happen that people forget. Garages, park your cars in the garages. Motion lights, motion sensor lights, always a good thing. Video surveillance is certainly helpful when it comes to a police investigation. It's not a guaranteed at the end of the day because there's various levels of surveillance equipment out there. Some are good, some are bad, and we can only work with what you give us. Just a couple other points. You can refer to indoor lights, put your lights on a timer, secure your valuables inside the house, If you have a safe, make sure it's secured to the floor. Don't put it in a place where somebody's likely to look. Bedroom closet. It's pretty commonplace. I think I'd go there first. Consider a furnace room. Not too often you're going to find a criminal who's going to go in to check your furnace. Shred your personal information. That's just common sense. If you're throwing personal items, protect yourself from identity fraud or anything like that. And again, park your vehicles inside your garage if you do have one. And some of these may not be applicable to businesses, but they certainly, if they are, I would strongly encourage you to take those on and consider them. So I just want to discuss a little bit about NRPS reporting. We strongly encourage you, the residents, business owners, the community of Port Colborne to report crime. If we don't hear about it, we can't act on it, okay? Regardless of how minor you think it is, we need to know about it. It helps us not only with our directed enforcement, but it also helps us in the long run if we see a spike in crime or we're getting consistently hit throughout the year and years. It could boil down to resourcing for our staffing. Maybe our staffing is not enough what Port Colborne needs. But if we don't hear about the crimes, we can't act on them. And our statistics, they're worth nothing at the end of the day. So I strongly encourage you. Obviously, emergencies are 911. Non-emergency calls is 688-4111 number, and just follow the voice prompts. I also wanted to bring your attention that you can report crimes online. You don't have to wait for an officer to come to your house. Crimes involving lost property, theft under $10,000, damage and mischief to property, theft from vehicles, and damage and mischief to vehicles. There is criteria involved for reporting online, but it gives you another avenue so you're not waiting around in some instances for an officer to come take a report, okay? The one main key point here is there's no suspects, okay? If a suspect is known, by all means, contact us and we'll take the report firsthand and follow it up from there. Again, there's Crime Stoppers out there if you wish to remain anonymous in reporting crime. It certainly helps us investigatively. However, it's a longer process. Again, when we get Crime Stoppers tips, we have to corroborate the information that you give us. If it's good information, we may already know the information, but if it's not, it requires us a fair amount of work to corroborate that. So it's certainly something worth thinking about if you wish to keep your identity free from any court process. But again, we encourage getting involved in the court process only because it helps our cases and it holds people accountable who need to be held accountable. If we don't have any witnesses or victims to participate in the court process, we've got nothing to work with, okay? We're willing to work with you, but we need the community as a whole to step up and help us do our job, essentially. So I just want to touch on our Niagara Police website. There's a bunch of information. I was surprised actually myself how much was on there. And I just want to highlight a couple things on here just because it's worth noting and it's a great resource for the community to take note of. We've got a new alarm program started here in Niagara, so it relates to our response to residential home alarms. If you do have a home alarm, you may want to read up on that and tell you how we're responding to that. There's community safety info, so that deals with the facts about fentanyl and drugs, and there's the seriousness about cross-contamination in regards to that drug. So some great information on that. Crime prevention through environmental design. There's, again, some more suggestions online on how you can better harden your business or your residents to hopefully prevent crime from happening to you. Again, cottage security. If you have a cottage locally, there's tips on how you can better secure your cottage. Again, the Lock It and Lose It program is on there. Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, there's a crime prevention booklet as well on our website. It's something you can refer to for additional security tips. In addition, road safety tips. And I really want to highlight this one too, because you don't need me to come to a city meeting to check your local stats for crime reporting. We have an application on our website that you can go to, and it highlights calls within the neighborhoods, within the districts, within the region, across the service. So in order to be transparent, our senior management wanted to put it online, so just you, the public, has an idea of what's going on out there in your community. The information is not real time, so there's going to be a delayed, so if you happen to be one reporting it, it may not show up right away, generally a 2 to 3 day delay. Again, the key piece here is it's going to protect the integrity of any investigation, so it's going to be a limited information. However, it's going to tell you whether a B&E happened at your neighbor's house down the street because you saw a police car there. It's going to tell you about police cruisers in another area of town, why they were there on a certain night. You probably would be able to pull it up and see that they were investigating an assault, you know, mental health or family domestic or whatever the case may be. So it's a great resource, and just for common knowledge, because you as well will be able to pick up trends in your neighborhood just as much as we are through our crime analysts. So strongly encourage you to check out that site. It's got lots of great information on there. So I just want to thank you in closing, and I can confidently say that the officers here in 6th District actually have a genuine interest in protecting your property and personal safety. A lot of them do live in the community of Port Colborne. In fact, a significant amount live in, so they're your neighbors, and they also work here. So there is a valued relationship currently with the 6th District as well as the citizens. Since I've been here, I've noticed it, but there's always room for improvement, and that's why we're here tonight. I'm here to listen to your concerns, and jointly together, I hope we can come up to a solution to alleviate the problems that are going on here. Again, it's a very safe community in comparison with the bigger picture around. I'm very fortunate, and my eyes have been open coming out here. So again, I want to encourage you to get involved as well as help us help you. Okay. So
thank you, Staff Sergeant LaPlante.
Thank you.
Questions of council? On my left. On my right. I just have one question. How do you define, what is included in the mischief? What do you include in mischief?
Mischief? Mischief can involve a number of things. It can involve somebody throwing an egg at a house. It can involve somebody scratching a car door. It can involve a variety of items. Mischief under 5,000, and there's mischief over 5,000. So the value is, or you know, that's how it's classified. So it's a broad spectrum. In a lot of cases, when I was reviewing the calls for service, mischief was often a secondary offense. So there was for example, there was an assault, but in that assault there was a mischief to property. So it would have been captured and doubled in that sense. So it really varies depending, and it could be anything you can imagine as far as it's just damage to property at the end of the day. So.
Okay, so if someone was to break into, or attempt to break into my office, and they damaged the door lock, would that be attempted B&E, or would that be mischief?
Mr. Mayor, that would be attempt, B&E, break and enter with intent to commit an indictable offense. as opposed to being break and enter commit, which would mean they essentially got into your office and actually did something. They stole something, or they assaulted you, or whatever the commit portion of the offense would be. So.
Okay, thank you. One more question, Mrs. Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Staff Sergeant. I appreciate your presentation. When I've been out and about traveling around, and particularly some comments that I've heard in Hummerston, like Main Street area, that business area, as well as what I call uptown, but is downtown, I guess. You know, you characterize this as a safe place to live. But some of the comments that I've been receiving from people is that they don't feel that way. They see like an upsurge of activity that is either, you know, like a violent-based thing that they've witnessed or heard about, or, I mean, we all saw many of us saw the video on Facebook, for example, of this incident down here, that personally I was shocked to see that being filmed and then be put up on Facebook. I just was appalled at that behavior of those 5 individuals attacking that fellow. When people see that, they can't help but come away with wondering, how many times does that happen and we're not aware of it, right? The one fellow I spoke to in Hummerston, and he owns a shop right on the main street, an antique shop. He told me, and I'm going to assume that he's telling me that he's being truthful with me, that as a shopkeeper, he could document 12 times that he called for the police, and no charges were laid on any of the 12 times. And they ranged from somebody threatening to firebomb his store to threatening, what he felt was at least threatening to his young teenage kids. Things that were fairly serious. They weren't just somebody mouthing off. They were disturbing enough to him that he felt he needed the help of the police, but he didn't feel like he got that help. So I'm not sure, I'm not asking you to comment on those specifics, but that was just some of the feedback that I was getting. And I think it's important that as much as those statistics are valuable, if somebody calls in and then there's like, I'm not sure how those stats generate the maybe what I would consider to be what happens when there is no charge laid. It's nothing really happened in those instances, it would seem. So is that going to skew the stats? I'm asking that question. Does that skew the stats when there's no charge, when there's no, maybe the police goes to a situation, but there is no charge, there's nothing else that happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those stats that I referred to today are strictly report generated, so they don't necessarily reflect arrests. That would be a separate report that I'd have to run to pull up individual arrests. And again, I can't comment, obviously, on your friend's experience with the police. But what I can say is, again, I refer back to the participation, and I'm not saying it's in this case in particular, but in some cases we just don't have evidence to proceed with a charge. And then we run into the situations where we don't have a willing participant in the court process, because it can be very discouraging and time consuming. That's just the nature of the beast in our world. We're used to that. Unfortunately, the average citizen, I don't think, is used to that court process. So I think it's an education piece that we have a certain amount of knowledge that we can pass along to the residents and help them along through the court process to encourage them to participate. So, but again, I can't say it's 100% the case in your friend's case. So,
Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Staff Sergeant. I'm taking a look at your crime reports website. And looking at from August 27th through to September 8th, there's 31 reports, 7 of which are violent crimes, 24 of which are property crimes. What I'd like to know is, in those situations, do you know how many charges were actually laid? Like in 31 instances, were there charges laid in all 31 of those situations? Or that's what I'm interested in knowing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have those stats available. Again, I was under time restraints as far as getting the information I required from our crime analyst for tonight's meeting. So she was able to run it just until August 30th. So from January to August. So I wouldn't be able to comment on arrests.
Okay, well, thank you. I would suggest maybe you could take it back to your people that if they're going to provide us with this kind of information, they may want to take it that step farther and show us what the outcomes of these things were. Because it would be good to know you have 7 instances of violence in Port Colborne inside of a less than 2-week period. We need to know what the outcomes of that were.
Thank you, Mr. Demery. That's good. Thank you very much, Staff Secretary LaFont. I'd like to move on to regular delegations. Again, you'll have a limit of 10 minutes, and then the period of questions and answers afterwards. So our first participant is Betty Conk. Mrs. Conk, can you come forward? Could I have your full name and address, Mrs. Conk, for the record, please?
Betty Conk, 831 Highway 3 East here in Port Colborne. I'm here tonight representing the downtown BIA. Just recently, a lot of this stuff, I guess, with the police has come to the fore simply because one of the downtown business owners posted something on Facebook and it seemed to catch fire. And from that, I had a couple of people approach me to talk about their particular instances. So in listening to those particular instances, I reached out and I have had 2 meetings with the sergeant, and we've had a pretty fulsome discussion. And from that discussion, I think he'll agree that there were some suggestions that were made. We also agreed that this is a very, very complex issue. It isn't just all about vandalism and theft and breaking and entering. It all has to do with joblessness and homelessness and mental health issues. And at the end of the day, what do we do with those people? Because there's no place for these people to be taken to. Should the police actually arrest someone and charge them, then what do we do with them? So it is a complex issue. I get that and I understand that. And we both agreed that it's going to be difficult to work with. So one of the suggestions that the sergeant came up with was that perhaps we have another committee, a community committee put together. I'm not going to suggest it's like the task force committee that was in place before, and it's not a horrible idea, but I would want to know, I guess, what the goal of that committee would actually be, and would the Police Services Board actually recognize any recommendations that might come out of that committee? So I'll leave you to cogitate on that one a little bit. The other couple of suggestions that he also had was that he is willing to go into the businesses downtown, or probably all across Port Colborne, to suggest things that the business owners could do to increase security. Just suggestions. They don't have to, he said they don't have to actually take his suggestions if they don't want to, but at least he'd be willing to go out and offer that service to those business owners. And so for you business owners out there, Staff Sergeant is more than willing to go ahead and meet with you and talk to you about the security measures in your building. Am I correct on that? Yes. Okay. One of the other things that we also talked about was cameras. Maybe the next incoming council during their budget deliberations need to think about some strategically placed cameras with high resolution so that it can help the police when we're dealing with nasty stuff that goes on in the back alleys, in the intersections, along the fronts of the downtown business areas. So those were all, I think, very good and ideas that both the BIA and the police and city council can work together on, because this is a community issue. We all need to work together to battle back what's going on. I feel it is at a boiling point at this point. I have, like Councillor Butters has mentioned, I've been out there in the community, and I've heard lots and lots of anecdotal stories about incidences that have taken place and things that the residents are feeling the police are doing and aren't doing. So I think we need to work together to take the perception away, if you will, that the police are not doing their jobs. And perhaps we need to have more of these public meetings with the police willing to sit down with us and listen to the members of the community and hear what they've got to say. It's different when you're just sitting one-to-one, but when you're hearing it from a whole room full of people, it might take on a different complexion, and maybe that's something that you will be able to come away with this evening, Sergeant LaPlante. So in closing, I'm quite sure that should a community committee be put together, the BIA would definitely like to have a seat at that table. I don't know who else might be at that table, but definitely the BIA would definitely want to be there. And I would be more than willing to take any questions at this point.
Questions of members of council?
Okay.
You will appear there right now. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Mr. Fred Davies, CEO of Lake Town Investments and President of the Niagara Business and Innovation Fund. Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. While I appreciate the Staff Sergeant's presentation on the business model of the NRP, what I was really interested in learning tonight was what's happening with your cruisers, where the activity generally is, where you are in the middle of the night. I can tell you that I don't believe those statistics, frankly, but we have a big problem. We have a big problem in our downtown, and I want to say that our downtown is on the verge of something spectacular. Our downtown is growing. There's been a lot of investment. How many people own a business downtown here? You've put a lot of money into your businesses over the last number of years, some number of decades, and I don't feel secure. I just opened a brand new business 6 months ago. I was assaulted on Clarence Street in the middle of the day by a guy who did something pretty nasty in front of my new business. My son and I called him out on it, and of course he ran at us, and I had the day's receipts in one hand and a file in another hand. I couldn't drop the money. He punched me in the throat, punched me in the chest. We chased him around, got his picture, called the police, showed the picture to the police, haven't heard a thing. A few days later, our business was vandalized. Our security cameras were the lines were cut, and actually they destroyed the security cameras. Had 2 hours of video leading up to the vandalism of the security camera, showed the police, took pictures, haven't heard a word. I don't want to exaggerate the problem, and I don't want to point fingers at certain groups. This is not about drugs. This is not about homelessness. I have seen people that are well-dressed, driving nice vehicles, stealing in the downtown core. I have been threatened by better people than the ones that we think are actually doing the crimes. I was actually threatened coming through Market Square to this meeting tonight by an individual on a bike who was scoping around the area. I chased him off. He swore at me. This is a daily occurrence in the downtown core. The last time this happened, about 7 years ago, I refer to it as the summer of crime, because we had in my buildings, we had over $100,000 in damages about 7 years ago. and I had one officer tell me, well, these people are here for a while and they'll move on. That generally is the case, but we're getting different people now, and I see different people every day that are coming in, and standing in front of my door today, there are some pretty sketchy people. Actually, one person was standing in front of my door this afternoon for about a half an hour. I've got a picture of him last night stealing from behind the Salvation Army. I sent the picture to the NRP. Actually, I'm sending all the pictures to the NRP now on social media. I got a note back today saying, we don't take reports on social media. There's a high level of frustration in the downtown core right now, and I know council is well aware of this. I spend more time downtown than most people, so I have a unique vantage point. There are some people that are sitting in the audience I know that have done the same thing that I've done. We live downtown now. We've invested money to improve the downtown so it would stimulate more investment. That is happening. We're being very successful at seeing that spin-off investment happening. I just want a little bit more for the exorbitant amount of tax dollars that we pay to get a little bit of increased service and a little bit more communication and some feedback when we make a call. When I make a call to the police, I want to know, I want to hear back about what happened. If I don't hear back, this is the frustration that we hear. I've heard from another business owner, another restaurant owner in town who's had all of their security cameras ripped off several times. They keep calling the police, nothing happens. They stop calling the police. I haven't, from the incident a couple of weeks ago when I got assaulted, I haven't called the police again since then. I've registered stuff online. But this is a pervasive feeling, I think, in the business community. Would you agree? That's what I want to hear, some solutions. So this is not just a policing problem. This is a community problem, and we need to find a multi-pronged solution. We need security cameras downtown. Other communities do this. I think we've reached that point in our evolution that we can't trust a lot of people that we see like we used to when we were growing up here, when the 9 o'clock whistle went. And maybe that is a combination of an increased assessment with BIA members. We need to have a meeting with the BIA to see whether that is actually an option, whether we can increase the assessment to the BIA members for security purposes. I talked to a couple of security companies. I was hoping to have an idea of what that would cost if we were to hire somebody to do rounds around the business community in the evenings. Not replacing the NRP, but supplementing the security that we need. I know that I need it where I am. I don't feel safe in my residence. And it's not up to me to confront all these people because I'm the one that's getting threatened. I don't want to have to keep a baseball bat beside my door, but I do now. And that's not right. That's not the community I grew up in. And I come from a long line of policing. I'm the only male in my family that's not a police officer, or that wasn't a police officer. So I'm not slamming the police, but I'm saying that the conditions have changed and we need some proactive and creative solutions. By law enforcement, let's step it up a bit. Let's get rid of some of the problems that are growing throughout the community. I mentioned security cameras. I'd like to volunteer whatever time I can to help investigate that as an option. That's all. That's it for my presentation. Thank you. Sure, it's in point form, but the ad lib isn't going to be there. 52 Clarence. Yeah.
President of the Council.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Fred, and actually not to Fred, but I'll pick up on some of the couple of the points that you brought up and directed to the staff. I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that the majority of people here feel that the staffing levels that we have in town don't meet the needs, and that we don't see physically enough officers at the places that they need to be at the times that they need to be. So a couple of questions. how are staffing levels in our district determined? And have staffing levels changed over the past 5 years, either increased or decreased?
Mr. Elliott, this is your opportunity to question Mr. Davies.
Yeah, and he's just brought up a couple of things that I think need to be asked to the staff sergeant.
Davies doesn't have the information you're asking.
No, I'm asking the staff sergeant.
Now that we'll come back to him, he said, you had your opportunity with that second line. Now we're here to.
Well, I'm just asking the questions that were raised with Mr. Davies' presentation, and he kind of skirted around. So I'd like an answer from the staff sergeant. It's not difficult.
Staff Sergeant LaFleur, are you comfortable in responding to Councillor Elliott's questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am, or I'll defer to Deputy Chief Flynn.
Thank you, and through you, Worship. So just from recollection, because I don't have the statistics with me right now, but I don't believe that our staffing levels have changed in the last 5 years in Port Colborne. To give you one way that our decisions are made on what appropriate staffing is would be to really understate it, I think. It has to do, obviously, in Port Colborne, part of the issue is the rural land that we also have, and I think Rob pointed out that that's a massive area, and it's about our ability to respond in a timely manner, both in the town of Port Colborne, in the city, as well as in Wainfleet in the outer area. It's also based on the numbers of calls for service we have, because obviously those are the same challenges as a service that we see in every one of our municipalities. So, I think Mr. Davies, raised the point in terms of we do pay a lot of money in Niagara for policing. That is the experience across our province and certainly across our country. We recognize, the Chief of Police recognizes that the way that we're successful is by having relationships with our community, and part of that success comes from at every level, not just Rob's level and not just mine, but the officer on the street making connections with his community or her community and having those relationships there. We know that crime's solved as a result of members of our community calling us, because those are the eyes and ears of what's happening. The part that we have to balance it with is at what cost sometimes, because we see it in downtown Toronto, we see foot patrols, but we also know that in downtown Toronto, officers are limited to 1 square block sometimes. That's not the experience of Niagara. If we can get our officers out of the car and walking the downtown patrol, then that's good for us, and we really do push it, and that's something, Your Worship, that I'm sure you're aware that Chief McCullough is very aggressive on and really wants to see at all of our districts as well. So I guess the short answer is our levels haven't changed over the last number of years.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Mr. Elliott, do you have any follow-up?
Just real quick, what's the determining factor for an increase in staffing levels? Do you review it on an annual basis, or is it reporting levels of crime, or is it based on size of the detachment?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the answer is yes to that. I mean, we have to look at statistically what's happening in all of our communities. For instance, we know that there are parts of Niagara that are growing, but it's also about what calls are being generated, what sort of issues are taking place in that community. And I think, and I know that this isn't always something that you see. You see our frontline members, you see our members in the cruisers on the streets, but we also have those other components that sometimes you don't see, like our street crime units, like our detective offices, and like the members of our intelligence unit who are working in the community, and for a good reason sometimes, not something that you're going to see every single day that are obvious to you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Any other questions of Council? Agreed none. Thank you, Mr. Davies. Our next witness this evening is Mr. Brian Abbott. Come forward to the podium. We have your address, Mr. Abbott.
30 Ridgewood Ave, Port Colborne.
Just say it again for the camera.
30 Ridgewood Avenue in Port Colborne.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. My little presentation's got really nothing to do with the downtown, but it's how the police reaction is to indecent exposure, so to say. Last June, just prior to the end of the school year, I'm driving down Steele Street in front of the Port Colborne High School. I'm coming towards the lake, and this gentleman is going in front of the school, heading down to McKay, pulling his pants down, waving his privates around in public. So I pulled off to the side of the road, called 911, and I got interrogated. I thought I was the pervert, so to speak. But finally somebody came. But by that time, the gentleman had disappeared down past Kalali. So they got all my information. I went down to the police station, and there was a young girl there. No problem there. She said, "Oh, I heard about that. There's a constable up there talking to the guy, or talking to people now. Would you like to go see him?" I said, "Yes." So I go up there. He's nobody's around. So later on that afternoon, I went down to the police station. I think I talked to you, Staff Sergeant, and explained about the protocols for the 911 operators. Well, they have a checklist and all that, but they're not allowed, so what I understood, to tell the complainant, "There's a car in the way, can we please get some information?" It seemed like they were just wanting to know my date of birth, and they asked what weapons was he carrying. Well, he didn't have any clothes on. He didn't have any weapons. So I'm sorry. So anyway, that was fine. I even called the dispatching supervisor. Same thing. They got this checklist. It's called risk management, I guess. Well, where I used to work, that didn't always work out. So anyway, 2 days later, I'm coming home from the Home Depot. I'm coming to Kalali and King. I see the same guy down there in front of Belmarine. So I call 911. Same thing over and over. So they sent 2 cars. And so I waited to see what was going to happen. One guy goes down King Street. The other guy goes the other way down King Street. I lay on my horn. They come back, and I point to the guy. He's up there. He's dropping his drawers and everything like that. So anyway, I drive up. And one of the guys, or one of the officers comes in. I guess he was from out of town, because he says to me, "Is Port Colborne a town or a village?" So anyway, I say, I'm not knocking the police, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's improper training maybe. So anyway, one officer talks to the guy, and away he goes. And then he comes back to me and he says, "Well, I offered him a ride out of town, but he wouldn't go." So I'm glad I don't have grandchildren going to school in this town, because what I saw in June, it just blew my mind. So, and I left my name and address, never got any follow-up. I thought I would have got some follow-up from Saturday, but as I say, the officer said, didn't see him do anything, so away he goes. Like, I know this gentleman was probably sick, but there's got to be something this community can do to get rid of these people. And I don't mean lock them up. There's got to be a home or something. They shouldn't be walking the streets where there's young children around. So I'm sorry I talked too fast, but that's my story.
Are there any questions? Councillor? Thank you, Mr. Allen. To remind those who are making presentations that we're dealing with vandalism in the downtown core, I appreciate there may be situations that have been very frustrating to members of the public, but we're here for a specific purpose, and we can't take the time to hear tonight all the grievances that may be aware of from other parts of the city.
Excuse me, could you put your microphone on so we can hear?
Oops, sorry.
Thank you.
Anyway, I won't go through that whole rigmarole again. Just remember, we're here to talk about vandalism in the downtown core. I apologize. I usually leave my mic on. I don't know how I got out. In any event, our next speaker is Miss Kim Simons. Thank you, Kim. Could you come forward? And we have your full name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Simons, but I would prefer to keep my address confidential, as this will be, I have some information that
Okay.
don't want people to have my address. All right, okay, so my name is Kim Simons, and I work for an agency that provides community supports here in Port Colborne. My husband is a business owner and has a business on Clarence Street. We also live here in Port Colborne. I want to make people aware of one of the problems that I see in the city and a solution that I see for it. There's a business called Niagara Supportive Living, and they run unregulated boarding homes in the Niagara region. There's 2 in Port Colborne. One is on Rosemount, and the other one is at the end of King Street near Main. There used to be one on the east side. Sorry, I'm nervous. just over the Cleared Street Bridge, and they closed down a couple years ago. So these homes provide housing for people that can't live independently. So for the past 5.5 years, I've been dedicated to identifying people that live in these homes that have developmental disabilities, and because of the living conditions, I've been assisting them to move to more supportive and appropriate housing. These boarding homes are not providing adequate care to the vulnerable people that live in them. They do not serve healthy meals, they have questionable medication practices, and they put vulnerable people with physical or developmental disabilities in rooms together with drug addicts as roommates. The owner also owns a pharmacy and forces the residents to use his pharmacy for all medications, and the list goes on. There's no ministry that oversees what's going on in these homes, and they are not required to have a license. Neither the Ministry of Health nor the Ministry of Community and Social Services is overseeing anything that's going on in these homes, and there are few, if any, bylaws that ensure that these homes are following any rules at all. I believe that some of the things going on in these homes is contributing to the violence, crime, and homelessness in the city of Port Colborne. People with many challenges from other cities are being sent to Port Colborne because of Niagara Supportive Living. It's regular practice for the mental health unit at the St. Catharines Hospital to discharge patients and send them to these boarding homes. In fact, when you call Niagara Supportive Living, the first option on the phone is to press 1 for intake and new hospital discharges. Many of these patients are not stable when being released, but the hospitals discharge them anyway, perhaps with the understanding that these boarding homes will provide adequate care, or maybe due to overcrowding in the mental health unit. Corrections facilities are also known to discharge into these homes. Niagara Supportive Living takes almost all of the money the people who live there would receive while on assistance, leaving people with approximately $100 for the month to have for spending money, and leaving them desperate and possibly pushing them to steal or do other illegal activities in order to get money. Some people who have a room at Niagara Supportive Living choose to sleep outside in our parks on occasion instead of going home at night. But some people who are sent to these homes choose to leave the home permanently and then become homeless in our community. I believe that by having bylaws put in place to help regulate these homes, we could curb some of the issues they are causing. Ottawa, Hamilton, and London have all implemented bylaws to regulate boarding homes, and it's my understanding that this has been effective. I have a report with recommendations to the Niagara region regarding rooming and lodging housing in Niagara. This report was written by a group of community stakeholders and submitted in 2017 to the Niagara Region Public Health and Social Services Committee. I am unaware of any further action regarding this report, but I do have copies if anybody would like to read it. It's quite interesting. These homes should be made to be accountable for the lack of healthy food choices, the questionable medication procedures, and these homes should be made to install sprinkler systems and fire doors like ministry-regulated long-term care homes and ministry-run group homes. If this happened, I believe that Niagara Supportive Living would be forced to either provide proper care for the residents, but more than likely would not be able to financially continue to run in our city with these regulations in place. There is a need for housing for vulnerable people, but these Niagara Supportive Living boarding homes are not the answer, and from my point of view, they are a big part of the problem with new people coming to the city that otherwise wouldn't be here. And that's my
Thank you.
piece.
I wonder if you could have a copy of your presentation before you leave.
Yes, I emailed it to her.
Okay.
Yep.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, other questions of members of council?
In this.
Councillor Demery, then Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Kim. Kim, thank you for the work you're doing. You're absolutely right in what you're saying, and I know that there are several people in the room tonight that have been working on that exact issue. Would you, I know you want your address out, but would you consider emailing me and possibly coming and speaking to our social determinants of health meeting where we are addressing things just like this?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I want to say, but thank you for your work.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Butters.
Kim offered a certain report, and I would like a copy of it, and thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Sorry I spoke fast. Got nervous.
Quite well.
Any other questions of council on my? Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
your presentation. I won't say I applaud you for your response, but clapping is not really allowed. Kim had a good message to deliver, and she did a good job in delivering it. But please, let's keep the clapping down. Next speaker is Mr. Rick Osborne, owner of Ozzy's Garage. It's a youth mentorship program at 25 Charlotte Street, Port Colborne. Mr. Osborne.
My name is Rick Osborne. I live at 170 Charlotte. I run Ozzy's Garage, which is an at-risk program with at-risk youth, right here at the old Snake Pit, if you know what I mean, right behind Benjamin Moore Paints. I'm a unique character in that I have a past where I was a criminal for quite a bit of my life, and I turned my life around, and now I work with youth. Having said that, I've worked with police services in North Bay, in Sudbury, in Toronto, Guns and Gangs exclusively, and Angia, and then in Quebec with youth justice on the reserves out there. So I do have an opinion about what's going on down here, and I have different eyes than a lot of people have because I'm at street level and I'm there every day at that corner. So I do see a lot of what's being talked about. Guys on bikes coming around, scoping out, and then coming back and robbing. Right? So this is what I see as the biggest problem in my area, is keeping eyes on. So I walk my dogs at night, and so I'm visible. I also have a baseball bat next to my door, and I shouldn't have to have that in my, I've had to chase guys away. I've had 2 break-ins, and I've had 1 attempted break-in. My answer to those things are environmental policing. A lot of it is, environmental policing isn't just that you put lights on or that you put cameras or that you do different things. There's alleyways as I walk down King between the buildings that should be blocked off. Ozzy's Garage is part of our church right across the road here. And so we have the park, and we'll be fencing that this winter, and we'll be doing the park project. And so we'll reclaim that corner. Every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning, and this morning I picked up 2 beer bottles with slices of lime in them. This isn't guys walking from their house. This is guys coming out of the Belmont and drinking and throwing bottles. And so this is where we get the broken windows. Where's the cops? Like, you know, I appreciate police officers. I like what you do. I respect that. But I'm not seeing, you know, when you say you have undercover cops and you've got intelligence, and you know what, that doesn't mean anything to these guys that are doing this roaming and stealing because they're not seeing them. It's not visible. Right? If they're not arresting them, that's not a deterrent for them. If somebody drives by with undercover lights on and doesn't arrest him, he doesn't know that's a cop. If he sees a cop walking by, he doesn't hang around there. When I say that, one of the environmental things that we did in other communities was I worked as a cop actually in northern Quebec, and I have to call in and dictate my, you know, during the day as I have an incident, I've got to sit and call in. And what we do is we put our cruisers into the high-risk areas that have been identified during that week, and we do our call-ins there. I have 3 daughters. They go to 2 of them go to high school. I drive out of here in the morning and see 2 or 3 police cars sitting in the parking lots outside of town, and drive my daughters to Font Hill and come back, and they're still sitting there. And I see this all the time. Right? Why are they not sitting next to the Belmont? Why are they not sitting on King Street? Why are they not sitting, you know, at the other areas where there's high risk, right? So that's one of the things that I'm looking at. Now I know this is, you know, there's drug problems. I know there's homelessness problems, and I know there's mental health problems. But we need to look at all of those things, right? I work with at-risk youth, and if I had the money, I'd put a house here right now because I've got 4 or 5 kids couch surfing. Right? And they don't have housing. But to Kim's sting, I would never put one of my boys in those homes, and I know those homes, and they're a bane to they shouldn't be here, and that guy needs to be arrested, not just those homes being taken apart. And everybody who's in the community that works with any people that are at risk know about those homes and what's being done and how they're being robbed for their money, and no services are provided. So there are issues that we can deal with as a whole. But I think as a community, you know, I'll give you another example. Out back of my shop, I've got 5-ton trucks bodies sitting there, pushed up against my fence in that area in the back there, and there's people who live there, and the business back there. We've got people running on the roofs at night. If you put an air conditioner out, they'll come cut your copper off. Our church has been done, my building's been done. I got a call one night, and I went down there and they ran away, cutting my fence to break in. I have Harleys. We build hot rods and Harleys with at-risk youth, right? And so they're breaking in to steal my Harleys, and they hid behind that 5-ton truck. What's that 5-ton truck body doing sitting there? That's a perfect spot at the back of a business for somebody to now have access to doors and things like this. So there's things we need to look at. Why are these being allowed to be put there? I think there should only be garbage containers in their spot where they're supposed to be, not up against walls and not up against fences where people can do. So that's a different kind of environmental thing. But having said that, I just want to say I'm 62 years old. I grew up, I'm a shirk. I grew up in Crystal Beach, and I wanted to come back here. My sisters were born here in the hospital at Sugarloaf, and this is a beautiful community, and I love living here. And you know, I love raising my daughters here. And so I'm just going to keep that short and say I love the community. We have some issues. They're not huge, but they are continually happening. And like I say, I live right here on this road, and it's like at night, here they are out on their bicycles looking at my property, and then they're out with their little trailers behind. My neighbor just had her little decorative ornament that she had on her porch taken. The guy came during the day and said, is that for sale? And she said, no, that's a family heirloom. And then later that night he came back, and there's it going down the road on the back of his trailer. And that's from her mom, and her mom's passed away. So this kind of prowl at night is kind of one of the big situations we're seeing, right, where we're going, what's happening about this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Other questions of council, Mr. Osborne? You made a perfective presentation, Mr. Osborne. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Bob Saracino, representing the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 56. Mr. Saracino, can you come forward? And can we have a copy of your presentation after you have made it?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm representing Branch 56 of the Royal Canadian Legion, and I'll keep my comments very, very quickly. Mr. Mayor and members, I just want to bring some concerns to the public and to the police and to the City Council that our branch is experiencing. We have found needles and syringes on our property, which causes us great concern. We found individuals sleeping behind our patio on the benches and adjacent to the Legion, next to the bank there, homeless people living there, sleeping there, causing some discomfort and problems. They're leaving some of the garbage there. There's feces around. And this is alarming, Mr. Mayor and members of council. And recently we've just partnered with the Navy League and the Air Cadet Squadron. They're now going to call our Legion their home. And this causes us to have great concern because the youth of our municipality have to endure the hardships that are going on around the Legion. And these needles that we find, what are we to do with them? Do we pick them up, dispose of them? It's a concern. I mean, recently we've had a few of them that we've picked up, we've packaged them up, and we've disposed of them. But if there's an agency that should come down and do these, or the Legion should be doing this, kindly let us know, because it's causing a concern. There's a bin in front of the Legion there now where people, the good people, you know, bring clothing there and some food and whatnot like that. During the night, individuals get into those bins and pick whatever they want out of there, and they dispose of them throughout the street. And it's creating a problem because they're disbanding some of their clothing and throwing their clothing away and picking up out of the bins. And it's creating a problem. And so we're very concerned because this Legion has been in Port Colborne for 92 years. And I've had the pleasure to be in the Legion member for 46 of those years. And we would encourage the people to come to visit the Legion, take part in our activities. Remembrance Day ceremonies are coming up very quickly, Poppy Week. So we would ask the public to come participate in our events to show our support for the sacrifice of those men and women who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom, the little that we can do to pay the respect So, Mr. Mayor, I would ask this council if a committee is being formed that you consider having a representative from the Royal Canadian Legion, because we owe it to the public. The public is concerned, Legion members are concerned, those individuals that are renting the Legion are concerned, and now that we have the youth, which we're so very happy and proud to sponsor those groups, because they are the future of tomorrow, our youth. And when we pick up the paper and read all of these incidences that are occurring, that certainly does not enhance our quality of life, and it sends a message out to the public. And I appreciate the previous speakers, and I congratulate you all for coming here tonight to make it known how you feel. Port Colborne's been around for a long time, and we are known throughout not only Ontario, but Canada as a livable community, one in which we take pride in, and I take pride in. I've had the pleasure to be involved with City and the region for many, many, many years. And when I have to come to make a presentation to council on matters that pertain to the safety and health of our people, that causes me great concern, Mr. Mayor. So I'll be very brief, and I'll leave that for your consideration. But if someone can give us direction as to what we are to do with these syringes and needles, we would be more than pleased to entertain that. And we look forward to hearing from them. So if...
Thank you, Mr. Saraceno.
So,
Mr. Louie, do you want to comment on the syringes? Or we dealt with that a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Saraceno.
Sure. Through your worship to the presenter. Welcome, Bob. We have actually, there is a public campaign going on by Niagara Regional Public Health and Niagara Regional Police through social media and different feeds. And when, I'm reading this from my computer, so just bear with me. When a needle or hypodermic syringes, sharps are found on public properties such as a recreational park or a roadway, sidewalk, there's a phone number to call. It's the waste info line for the region of Niagara. They will send staff out to pick it up. It's 905-980-6000. Unfortunately, it does appear to me, just through this preliminary research, that people, private property, people are responsible for their own cleanup. The advice from the region, I'm reading this from the region's website, the guidelines for proper disposal are to bring a sharp container to the location and ensure the top is open, carefully pick up the syringe or sharp using a retrieval tool such as tongs or pliers, not your bare hands. Dispose of it in the container needle end first and close the container securely and dispose of the sharps container following these guidelines. Place syringes and sharps in a sealed, puncture-proof container. Contact your local pharmacy to see if they will receive it. If not, bring it to a household hazardous waste depot. So that's what the region is doing right now, and that's part of a public campaign.
Good grief. Talk about bureaucracy. That's a perfect event right there. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you could provide us with that information, I will forward it off to our executive. Sure. And I think the public should be made aware of that. I mean, this is ridiculous to ask the people to go through it and to do that.
Sure. Through your worship to the presenter, I can make sure an email is sent to your executive or the board of directors. I can't explain the process. I'm only telling you what I'm being told by the region. The region does waste management in Niagara.
Perhaps through you, Mr. Mayor, to the regional council, if you can take that back to the region and tell them the bureaucracy that they are imposing upon the residents of this municipality is just atrocious. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Saraceno, could you just hold on a second? We have a few questions. Madam Councillor Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually not for Mr. Saraceno. It's actually to address what Mr. Louie had just said, because a couple of weeks ago when we had the issue at this table, we had told people to contact our Parks Department and our Works Department to get people out to pick those up. So now it's a different number, so we should send a different message out. Is that correct, that we're no longer doing it? I just want to be clear, because I've given a totally other direction. We all did, yes.
Yeah. That was only in municipal parks, I think, was Councillor Demery.
Sure. Through your worship to Councillor Demery, I do think our director wants to be, so the press release that I just read to you from the region does say to call the waste info line if it's found on public property. Absolutely, if we get a report on a road, sidewalk, city park, marina, arena, into either our operations after hours line or the daytime dispatch, it will get through to one. Our staff can take it take care of it. Our staff can call the Niagara Region info line. Our staff might be able to dispose of it ourselves. So definitely call the city works yard, 905-835-2900, and or there's a dispatch number, right? Yes, thank you. 5079. So if you do call the city, we will take care of it on city property. We can't go onto private property and clean up needles. The Legion would be private property, a household would be private property, but we can definitely take those phone calls. The Region will pick them up on other municipalities' property, including their own.
Okay, so the information that's already been given is still valid. This is just another layer.
Yes, it's another.
So that's fine. And as far as benches out front of the Legion, that is in public space, yep. So that's okay. All right, good, thank you.
Councillor Butters, did you have a question? Thank you, Mr. Saraceno. We appreciate, again, if you can have a copy of your presentation. Yes, can you provide us with that presentation, please? Thank you, Mr. Saraceno. Next speaker is Mr. Brad Cutler. Mr. Cutler. Could I have your full name and address, Mr. Cutler, please?
Brad Cutler. I'm resident of 266 West Street, Harbourfront Hotel.
Okay.
I'll be as brief as I can, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for hearing me.
Mr. Cutler, there's a little red button there. Can you put that on so the rest of the people can...
That one?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Thank you to Council, Mr. Mayor, Regional Police. I was not born in Port Colborne, but I moved here in 2007, and I fell in love with this community to the point where I saw how the community gave back to the community. At that point, I joined Bikers' Rights Organization, started giving back to the community through Port Cares, Salvation Army, various things. Since 2012, I've been a member of NBS Riders Port Colborne. We give about $3,500 a year back to the community. And the reason I'm bringing this up is in that time, I've gotten to know several of the downtown business owners, a lot of the other business owners, Tux Jewelers, LeMay's Meats, Mr. Davies, Madam Conk. They have all given generously back to us because they know we give back to the community. And I'll get back to that in a minute. For about 5 years now, I've had family members working at Salvation Army. I've seen the distress that goes on with people destroying goods, stealing goods. I followed one individual once, shamed them on Facebook, found an entire garage full of possessions that were stolen from the Salvation Army. That's money that's stolen from an organization that gives back to the community wholehearted. And I don't know for sure of why the programs are closing down, but we're losing the programs from Salvation Army. I don't know if it's due to funding or what it may be, but our organization has given to Christmas families. We've ran food drives for the Salvation Army to help them out in any way we can. But so far I've found 2 individuals that I've stopped from stealing. They've seen what's going on, explained it to them, they've stopped, only to find 10 more come up. Now I find them, I take pictures, I put them on social media. 7 other individuals that I know, we do walk-bys and drive-bys. I know Mr. Davies has seen me once. I had to come to his defense when there were, I believe, 4 or 5 individuals that were harassing him, and I had to go intervene. I've been threatened with physical violence each time. It has not come to that, but the fact remains that I am still being threatened. Mr. Davies is being threatened. Other members of the public are being threatened. Moving on, it's escalated. It's gone from simple, I'm just taking what I think I can peddle. It's gone to, I can do whatever I want because I can get away with it. And unfortunately, they're right. And I've seen it, I've witnessed it. I live with people in the building that do it. And it's been noted to the officers whose feet are on the ground. Not anything against you gentlemen that work in the offices or aren't out on the street so much. But the officers are told that person's going there and they're doing that. And the end result is nothing. Yeah, we know. But nothing happens. And I find that myself disturbing. The fact that they don't care and can get away with it also leads me to the problem that my girlfriend works at the break wall. My friend is Fred Davies. Other family members work at Salvation Army. I shouldn't have to be scared for them finishing work at 10 o'clock at night, or 5 o'clock at night even, and walking out to find individuals that want to threaten them to take whatever possessions they seem fit. And like I said, that falls very disturbing. Now, I agree with spending my money in downtown Port Colborne. I work long hours driving truck. I like to go to the Breakwell Brewery for supper and a beer because I finish work about 8 o'clock some nights. So then when I leave there, yeah, I need a pack of cigarettes. Maybe I like some chips or some Gatorade for the morning. I'll walk by the Food Basics parking lot and I see 2 cruisers. Great, you're downtown, awesome. I leave 7-Eleven, come back, see the 2 cruisers are still sitting there having coffee, which I don't mind. I drive truck, I like to sit and have coffee. But 1 block over, if they could sit in the market square, they'd be witnessing crime. And they've been told that the crime happens at those hours of the nights. The officers on the ground. Now, maybe I'm not the best individual to deal with the police because I have a rather colorful past, shall we call it. I don't have a record. But I'm also not the individual that calls the police. I'm the individual that goes and stops what I see happening. Maybe that should change on my end. However, when you do mention it to the officers whose feet are on the ground and nothing becomes of it, you start to question who in this community looks out for the community. And that I find eternally disturbing. A simple 1 block over could stop crime. I know it's not their responsibility to be somewhere without being called, but I think it's a moral obligation that if you know crime happens in that particular block, that maybe if you want to have your coffee, have 1 car sit over there and have your coffee and your buddy sit over at the Legion to subside with the other problems that the Legion is having. Maybe you can have your coffee apart and maybe deter a little bit of crime. You may not be stopping it, but you might be deterring it. I noticed within the last couple of years that the East Village has had great success. I know Madam Conk and others have helped deter some of the crime there. They've helped set up some of the things that stop these things and want to bring people here. And you mentioned possibly having a committee. I would be more than happy to be someone who is a street level person. I would be more than happy to be part of that committee to help build this community back up. Because I moved back here after I'd left for a stretch because I missed Port Colborne. And I come back to a disaster that I've seen downtown. We've proven that this type of committee and this kind of partnership between council and the Niagara Regional Police Department works. So let's let it work again. Let's build a community in the downtown core back up so we don't have to be scared for my girlfriend or my family to leave work at the end of the day. Last thing I'll put forward is the city of Port Colborne has put it out there that downtown was open for business. And we want business here. And I know individuals have recently opened businesses. Andy's down at the corner and a bunch of others. And that's great. But the other message I'm getting from council at this point is once you open your doors, you're on your own. And that's the way it feels to the people in downtown Port Colborne. And that, to me, is a crime. And I'm hoping that council will move forward and assist us and assist the police to do what it takes. And I mentioned earlier about all these people that give back to us, who give back to the community through our organizations. It feels like you're leaving them hanging in the dust too. And it literally breaks my heart. I don't have any formal presentation, I just wrote notes. But that's all I have for council, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Members of council, do you have any questions for Mr. Cutler? There are none. Oh, did someone say just one? No. Thank you, Mr. Cutler. It appears
Thank you very much,
no
council.
questions.
I appreciate it. And Betty, I'd see you after. I'll get you.
Our next presenter is Mr. Sean Teeter. Mr. Teeter, can you come forward? Mr. Teeter, could I have your full name and address, please, for the record?
Yes, it's Sean Tedder. It's good to have the mic on. Niagara Falls. I moved to Niagara Falls about a year ago. Lived in Toronto all my life, and then close to downtown, and done security part-time, full-time, major events to asset protection, and in the last few years also I've become a cannabis consultant for security and other issues. And Niagara region is one of the second largest in the country for that industry because of your agricultural background, and you've made some great agricultural bylaws to protect the industries. But back to your issue, what we've noticed constantly is that there's people wandering around aimlessly, and all the comments I've heard, and there is harm reduction issues and needles in a couple of the presentations, and it is unfortunately the opiate crisis that's started on the West Coast mainly with 100 people dropping a week. When they say they're dropping, they're overdosing, and if they're not tended to within a timely fashion, usually 5 minutes, they're brain dead. And I've done security at clubs in Toronto, and unfortunately I've seen it happen as well because it gets mixed into what they call party drugs, which could be anything from ecstasy, cocaine, and the biggest one is opiates, which is started in 1999 with the OxyContin promise from doctors and pharmaceuticals saying that they wouldn't be addictive and it wouldn't hurt you. So based upon that information, in my industry, we've come up with some stats that are friendly stats to help you, as the cannabis industry in the 26 legal states in the U.S. have reported 25% reduction in prescriptions of opiates. The justice minister down there is not marijuana friendly or cannabis friendly. He said that's just a fad. But of course, the stats don't lie, I guess, when you have a prescription reduction. What I've done at different asset protection facilities or locations or events is it's always usually intoxication or harm reduction of other prescribed drugs or not prescribed drugs. So the needles issue, there's containers that you can buy very inexpensively and put them maybe at town centers. There was a needle exchange canceled in St. Catharines when Doug Ford came in. He wants to reevaluate it. But you can have the containers at least, and if your health board is here, they could do a needle exchange at least to hopefully get the dirty needles off the street too. If they have a walk-in clinic once a week, or or just an open, like I've gone in health boards in Toronto where they give out free condoms even, which is an old issue, right? The other ones that haven't been mentioned so far to avoid vandalism, to deter it, is if there's graffiti, wasn't mentioned yet, but if you have a graffiti wall maybe that once a month can be changed over and whitewashed, and a group of kids could be allowed to do some art in a public space, or that they did in Niagara Falls for this weekend. We had a grow-up conference there, about 3,000 people attended, but then we stumbled across pianos. There was about 10 pianos painted for a week, and then they're going to be there for a whole month, where people just find a piano, and so it could be anything done in your community to highlight your marinas, your bridges, and so on. I'm sure you do Christmas lights, things like that. But the other issue for the people is that if they find some things to do, whether you have a skateboard park they gather at, or wherever they gather at now, the beach or something, they could have an area where paint could be donated, say, and they could actually express themselves that way rather than on somebody's building. If they're crashing glass after a drunken night, then that's the security of the facility should be upgraded with a. There's 40,000 security guards licensed in Ontario alone, and if they can't find a licensed security guard, they have to, because that was the new laws, I think, since somebody choked to death in BC when they were handcuffed by a security guard and pushed down on the ground. And of course that's villages. If there's bottles found with lemon, then they're carrying out bottles from the bar, and that's illegal, of course, and bad. Then you've got other parts of vandalism with the camera action, infrared at night and so on, and dark corners, darkened parts of the streets. It's a very old town and very historic town, and it will have those issues, I'm sure, than more of a modern town, but with lighting, proper lighting, and if they make these receptacles at the Salvation Army and the other places where the clothing goes in but it doesn't come out, they should strengthen that could be changed. I mean, it's very hard to dumpster dive into some of these, but most of the time I see the doors unlocked, and if the doors were locked, and then they would be respected a lot better than trying to get the clothing out. And then you've got hoarders taking all these to garages, and they're mainly hoarders. They're not really selling. They just have usually a mental condition. But other than that, I don't know if I didn't hear any neighborhood watch program either. I hear the BIA. If you have a neighborhood watch program, that helps the residential area and also the business area, neighborhood watch area, would help, because it looks like you're a very tight community, and so that you've all been helping each other anyway when you see something happen. But if you have the watch community set up, and the signs sometimes are deterrents as well. That's, I think, about all. Oh, and of course the main things are happening in the summer, so I guess the staffing issues would be more in the summer, and look at that, scheduling and so on, and more improvements by the city and helping with all the events that you have, is still have some outlet for the youth to feel that if they're homeless, or if they're without work, there's something the community should be offering from the Niagara region area right on down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tedder. Just one moment, sir, in case there. Mr. Tedder?
Oh, sorry.
Just in case of questions of members of council.
Thanks.
Calling council, any questions? There be none, thank you for your recommendations.
Thank you.
We have two more speakers. I'd like to call upon Christine Clark-Lafleur to come forward. And could I have your name and address for the record, Mrs. Lafleur? Clark-Lafleur.
Thank you. 92 Charlotte, Port Colborne.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's late, and I think there have been a lot of really insightful comments brought to the table here, so I'll keep my remarks short. I came to this meeting to listen, and I've heard a lot of great things, and one of the best things about tonight is the fact that there can be community dialogue. I couldn't agree more with Mr. Davies, Ms. Conk, Ozzie, Mr. Pedler, who just spoke. It's complex, and it is a community issue. And I think we have to start breaking things down into sort of immediate, short-term, and longer-term actions. I think the idea of a community table is absolutely spot on. If you look to Glasgow, and Deputy Chief Flynn can attest to this in terms of what happened in Scotland with high rates of crime, lack of employment, addiction coming out the wazoo, and homelessness. It took a few years, but they turned it around. I see that as part of something that our community should look at. because it's not going to change. Let's face it, some of the issues, I pulled a news article from 1979, and you could have changed the date to 2018. There are, generic issues within the community around poverty that have been here for 4 generations. Port Cares itself works with families that it's intergenerational. We're dealing with 4 generations of families with the same issues related to poverty. But I have to say that just because you're poor and you're homeless doesn't mean that you're a thief and a thug and a hooligan. Let's call it what it is. Port Cares itself was the victim back this spring of major property damage and theft to the tune of $15,000. By the time all was said and done, we're looking at close to $30,000 in funds that could have gone to help get kids turned around, that could have helped to feed families that are truly trying to change their circumstances. But instead, we've had to double the number of cameras at both of our sites. We put cameras on cameras because cameras get stolen and broken. We, barbed wire and fencing. It was not a proud moment for me by any stretch of the imagination, but it had, we had to do it. But most importantly, we got the word out. We got the word out to our clients. We have just over 1,267 unique individuals registered on the food bank. We have registered about 86 individuals who come to the meal program. So when all of this went down, we had to have a conversation. We had the dialogue with Niagara Regional Police, who did what they could do. But unfortunately, you rip apart cameras, you rip apart air conditioning units, there's no serial numbers on them, right? You take $12,000 worth of infrastructure and you turn it into a piece of garbage. And at the end of the day, there's only so much that can be done from a policing perspective because, it's just the way it works. So we got the word out in our community and we told our clients, look, you know what? If this happens, we won't have the resources to assist people who are really trying to get, are working towards improving their life circumstances. So please let it be known far and wide for the people we sincerely try and support that the services provided by the Reach Out Centre and Port Cares, it's a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege, and it's a privilege afforded because of the compassion of the community and the care for others. So we asked our constituents, our clients, to be mindful, to be aware, to do the right thing, and they have. So in my heart of hearts, I know that what happened to Port Cares, and like Mr. Davies, I didn't get personally assaulted. I got spit at. That's okay, if that's what you want to do, but I mean, okay. I got called lots of interesting names, but that's okay too. I'm old enough to be able to say later, right back at you. We took a stand. We knew that some of the folks who are involved, as one of the gentlemen described, with the hot houses, with all the stolen goods that have probably been doing it for 20, 30 years, we took a stand and said to a few people, you know what? We're a private organization. We're a charity. We're here to help people who need help. We kind of know what's up. We know you don't need our help. Don't come here anymore. We can do that. So that's what we did. We drew a line in the sand to say enough. And, it helped for a while. In fact, knock wood, things are still going in the right direction. But what is so difficult about this conversation tonight is that there are people in this community who truly need help. Not everybody who's homeless, because there are 60-year-old women living in their cars with their dogs in this community. They're not the ones ripping down air conditioning units and stealing. They're not the ones leaving needles on private property. We have to make a distinction between those who are truly in need and looking to improve their circumstances from those individuals who just want to cause social chaos, wreak havoc, and carry on in the activities that they've probably been doing for many years, and some of us in the room know exactly who we're talking about. and, you know, and allowing those individuals to just make it worse for other people who didn't, you know, invite themselves into circumstances that are less than ideal. So if you know, I you know, was looking at some, you know, looking at some discussion around turning around some of the poverty model into an economic prosperity model. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think if there's collective will to work on it, I think it can be something that will, you know, change things, because it's not going to turn on a dime. It hasn't in close to 40 years. It's not going to turn overnight, but I think there has to be, there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of blame in certain domains. Enough of that. Let's just get to some actions, because you're absolutely right. This is a wonderful community. I think it's, you know, it's unbelievable, the community support that's here. You can't let a handful of hooligans risk what's been so great for so long. And if there is a willingness of council to work collectively, I would certainly, you know, contribute my time, both personally and professionally, to help out, and that of my team. I think, you know, again, there are many good things going on in this community. Staff Sergeant LaPlante didn't brag about it, not whatsoever, but of those 34 cases, those 34 people that the Portal table has dealt with, those are people from all spectrums, people that have experienced, you know, some of the worst sexual abuse that I've heard of in my 58 years on this earth, that have experienced all sorts of terrible things, and one person at a time. I commend the police, I commend every single community agency that's at that table who are making real changes to help people in humane and compassionate ways, that for the first time in some of their lives, they've had a little bit of dignity and the help that they need. So, you know, again, those initiatives through Portal cannot be compromised by, again, I would surmise, a handful of people that are really bringing it down bad on a really good community. So I didn't write any notes. I just said what I had to say based on what was said here tonight, but I strongly encourage council and community not to give up the hope. You can turn this around. It may not be pretty at times, but it's important that we work collectively and all on the same page.
Thank you, Mrs. Collector. Just 1 minute in case there are members of council have a question. It appears that there are none. Thank you very much for appearing tonight.
Thank you.
Our final speaker tonight is Mr. Norm Leon. Mr. Leon. Can I have your full name and address for the record, Mr. Leon?
Good evening. I'm Norman Paul Leon. I live at 629 Clarence Street in Port Colborne.
Go ahead. That's good.
It's coincidental that I'm here because I usually go out at night in the summertime and I ride my bike late at night. I'm one of the people you'll see between usually the hours between midnight, 4 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I love the summer nights, no cars on the roads, cool temperatures, and I'm an avid bicyclist. So it was coincidental about a month ago when I saw somebody riding a bicycle with a trailer packed full of stuff behind them. And they were crossing the Clarence Street Bridge and heading into the East Village. So a couple days later, I was having like a conversation with a person on a committee with me, and I said, you would never believe what I saw at like 3 in the morning. This was the craziest thing. She pulled up a Facebook page and said, that's Mr. Fred Davies posting. And so she showed me the picture. She said, I go, that's the guy. He was on a bicycle. The trailer actually came off the bike, and then he had to go get it, but he was hiding his face. I says, I wonder what he had, you know, like 3 in the morning. So I usually go by the Food Basics parking lot. Usually around 3, 2 in the morning, there would be a police officer usually there. There was nobody there that time, so I was going to say something to them. Recently, I've been aware people in the community have reached out to me, and the break-ins are not downtown only. They're citywide. Homes, garages, cars, businesses. It's like an epidemic. It's everywhere. It's not just a downtown issue. This is a major issue. It seems like there's teams of people that come over there on bicycles, sometimes in the day, but at nighttime I see lots of people on bicycles They go through the neighborhoods, because there's a lot of houses that don't have driveways in the street, and they have the alleys behind. And they're going up and down there. We have the walking people. They go around the city halls. They go all down the businesses. They're checking doors, checking stuff. But it seems like they're organized. It seems like if somebody finds something, then the guy with the bicycle with the trailer shows up. And then he gets the stuff over to wherever the warehouse is, whatever they're doing. I know this sounds crazy, but I've witnessed it many times. Used to be, before summertime, like July and August, the police would be at the food basics. But it seems like during the summer months, because of the tourism and the recreational use of our Niagara region, the police force is stretched to the very, very bare minimum in each square kilometer that they patrol in. You wonder, is this going to peter down, like he said, during the winter time? Will it get to be less problem? If not, maybe it will be better. But as I've experienced with the so-called nightlife of the city, especially in the summertime, I just had a few suggestions, and these are for the police department. If it's only the summertime, I'd like to see it year-round. You guys can, we can decide on that, or a committee can decide. But at least in the summer, have a committed surveillance patrol schedule between the hours 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning. The downtown core, but also the surrounding neighborhoods. As you go farther out, say you get to Rosemount Street this way, or you get to Elizabeth Street that way, the break-ins are almost not happening. But everything inside these areas, there's it's massive number of things. Massive cars, and I can't even believe it. I can't believe what I've heard. If it's necessary, and if it's possible, this will take months to implement. The Toronto Police Service uses a CCTV cam system. It's identified as police camera systems. Generally, with the Toronto Police Service, what they did is they waited 6 months to notify the public that these cameras were coming, how the privacy issues would be addressed, that they were generally a 6-month trial period for these cameras. And people are aware that, yeah, that's like a police officer watching me. It's not just somebody's private business. Generally, those are higher definition cameras. When you have a police officer who's the surveillance, the evidence to get a conviction in court is totally different when you have just, oh, my camera has a grainy image on a rainy night. A police officer is deemed to be an officer of the court, and their evidence is very valuable when it comes to a conviction. We can work with the regional police services and see, is there anything we can do? The committee that Mrs. Conk has decided, maybe we can get the police to do something like this. Maybe even some downtown and the bridges. Another one, this is very simple. It's going to sound like an old-time suggestion. No one else had it tonight. Having an officer riding a bicycle during the surveillance time. During the night, there's almost no cars on the road. You might see one car every half hour. So if I was the burglar and I saw a car light coming down the road, I would know that's probably a police officer. If it's a police officer on a bicycle, maybe they can get closer to the action. There'll be an expert evidence on the site, and we can, I actually says here, in my opinion, there's probably just a small amount of people responsible for this crime wave. Once we root out this group, it seems to be organized, then I think our community problem will go away. And it's not right what's happening. People should not be in this city. A lot of people in this city grew up with no locks on their doors. A lot of them didn't have keys. They're not used to waking up in the morning and their wheelbarrow or something's gone, or their lawnmower or whatever. And these are simple solutions that perhaps the police can find an answer to. Thanks for letting me present.
Just hold on, Mr. Lane, 2 seconds, that there may be questions of council. There being none, thank you very much for your presentation.
On the report that I filed with her, there's actually the presentation from the Toronto Police Service on how the cameras were implemented, and it's on their website.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We have come to the end of our registered delegates. There may be some members of the audience who would like to speak. Council is committed as a whole to hear as many people who wish to make their voices known. I would have to ask for council to move a motion to allow any unregistered speakers to come forward. Are there unregistered speakers out in the audience of the chamber who would like to add to the record here? The young lady here. Okay, just a minute. I just want an indication of how many would like to speak. I have one, two, one in the back, three. Okay, four. I'd ask for a motion of council to allow additional unregistered speakers to in fact come forward. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Carried. I would suggest we're going to have to tighten this up a little bit, that we would like to come to the podium, but perhaps speak no longer perhaps than 5 minutes, and my timer here will tell me and I'll cut you off, unfortunately. But so come forward one at a time. Maybe start with Mr. Kalaliff, and then I'm sorry, this young lady there. Go ahead, Ted. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Light is on.
Yes, mic is on.
Left 15 Charlotte Street here in town.
Thank you.
Former police officer, retired. I feel your pressure on you to perform. You're doing an excellent job, by the way. There's only so many of you there. You have to do what you have to do. I just got up here. I've lived here just the last year. I've been away for a while because of the regional job, and I've experienced a few thefts. A tall ladder, a sectional ladder, a leaf blower, sorry, and $120 bird feeder. I thought, 3 different incidents. I didn't call it in. I thought, what is this? This can't be happening. What's going on? But you see this guy going around with the trailer thing, I'm sure he's pulling off something as well. But I had an incident a couple weeks ago where I saw a gentleman pushing a bicycle and going in behind some cars in a dark corner where my place is, behind the old Imperial Bank of Commerce. Schultz's place, West Street, it's all along my one side of my building. And I see this gentleman trying the car door, and then he's trying the back door of the real estate place, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to call. I call up, I get talking to dispatch, and it's not the police performance at the other end, at the receiving end, they show up at the scene. It's I'm talking to the dispatcher, I'm telling her what I'm seeing, I give her my name, my address, my date of birth. This gentleman mentioned the same thing. I need some action, get a car down here and I'll stay and I'll give you all the information you need. I'm waiting. I talked for about 2 minutes, and I said, have you got a car going there yet? I mean, this guy's getting ready to leave, looks like. They said, no, not yet, I've got some more questions to ask you. And I'm just about ready to throw the phone out. I'm going crazy. I said, this new system, whatever it is, this need to know so much information before you get a car coming. So it's over 2 minutes. I'm giving information. It only was less than 2 minutes before the police were there. It was a wonderful response by the time they got dispatched. But that 2 minutes, man, you could have caught him at the act of what he was doing there. And I spoke to the officers right after and during what they were doing, and I told them what I felt about it, and I understood exactly what they decided on, and I agreed with them. No problem. But that 2 minutes plus of give me the information before I send the car, I said, what is this new system? I questioned it, and I hope you can review that one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. Can you just hold on to 6? Ted? Yes. In case there's some questions of council?
Yes.
There is none? Huh? Thank you very much for your input. The young lady who put her hand up, as it is, come forward and can I have your full name and address for the record, please?
Chantal Tetro, 27 East Main Street. I currently bought the fry truck. Been broken into twice this summer. First time, Busy Bee across the street, had camera surveillance. It was 4 a.m., grainy, too far away. We saw the guys leave, but it was too dark, couldn't do anything. Lost about $400 worth of product and had to replace it, put new cameras in, everything. Second time was 2 weeks ago, a bunch of kids. Let's get high, break into Big Mama's, we want Mazda sticks. Let's do $1,000 worth of damage. Next day, my son goes to the canal, which I never let him go. The kids who did it actually admitted it to him, exactly what they did. And when he said, I know who that was, didn't say I was mum. Proceeded to threaten to kill him. Took his phone, threw it in the canal. So now I'm out vents. Police came and everything. I've got to say, you guys were great. But now I'm out, he's out a cell phone. I'm out vents, $1,000. I had to take a day off work to go to the Welland Police Station. Haven't heard anything of what's going on. Court. What do? I put that on my insurance. I'm going to be charged more. Felt violated as hell. Pardon my language, but why are they not doing something about it? Why are they not getting charged? A slap on the wrist isn't doing anything. The one was 12 years old. The other one was 18 that threatened my son. Something needs to be done because they think they can get away with it. Drugs in this town, they're all getting high on the island on Clarence Street. There's needles there. They're doing coke. They're doing everything and anything. They're beating on people at 7-Eleven. Like, something's got to be done. I don't even feel safe having my kids walking around. Or myself leaving the fire truck. I'm paranoid, looking around my shoulder. Are these kids going to come? Are they going to come try rob me again? Are they going to come beat me up because I called the cops? Like, how come I've lived here all my life and now I don't feel safe? 40-something years. Something's got to be done, and drugs is an issue. I've been told there's people from Toronto, they're sending the druggies here because we have free clinics. They're giving them free bus tickets. How is that helping us? That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any questions of Mr. Churchill? I stand to be corrected by the police, but I understand that incident at 7-Eleven, there have been arrests made?
Yes, if I could just comment on that. Yes, the last party and the male involved was arrested today, so we have 5 accused in that case.
Thank you for your graphic presentation. Norbert Geiger, could you come forward? And could we have your full name and address for the record, Mr. Geiger?
I'm Norbert Geiger, and I live at 188 West Street. I've got a business there, and I've had a business there since 1979, so I have been a resident for a long time on West Street. And during that period, I've seen a lot of cycles go up and down where it felt very secure living there. The policing was great. Then things take a dive and it gets worse again. Then you get people coming around saying, what's going on over here? There's a huge police presence all of a sudden, walking the streets, and the crime disappears. Then, I mean, we had Crime Stoppers, and we had these other things. We put stickers on the windows, you know, where you try to help out everything. So what I'm listening to tonight, to me it sounds like there's a failure to communicate in many areas. For example, Bob Saraceno brought up the point about the needles and when they're on the private property. The health care, their primary mandate is to protect the public. What does that mean? A resident is Joe Public. Keep them responsible for their obligations. It's a communication thing. Hold them responsible for what they're doing. Don't say, Mr. Private So-and-so, figure out how to pick up something you're not even trained to do. If they get hurt or a disease enters their body through whatever you're asking them to do because it's not on public property, who's going to take care of the added bills from this person getting sick because he does not know how to handle it? Other communication problems, the police report, they've got their statistics that seems to say one thing. Then we get everybody in this room making other reports saying there's really a different reality. Again, it's a communication thing. Communication has to be between this council, between the residents, the police, all of them have to come together, communicate to create problems, not to create problems, but to solve problems. Not just to voice them, but to work together to solve them. There's not one thing I've heard here tonight that could not be solved through communication. And I think that's the main thing I want to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geiger. Any questions of council? There being none, thank you for your intervention. Go ahead, ma'am. Come forward. Name and address, please, just for the record.
I'm Janice Phillips, 481 Sugarloaf Street, Port Colborne. I know that we're here for the downtown core, but where I live is close to the quarries, the end of Sugarloaf. We have Tent Village, and nothing has been brought up about that. And being told by these people that they were given a bus ticket and $50 from Toronto because there wasn't enough food and lodging for them there, and they were offered a trip to Port Colborne in the Niagara region. And I know I use Mapleview Medical Clinic. We have to have a key to use the bathroom now because they're in there and they're wreaking havoc. They're falling asleep in the bathrooms, using their phone, charging their phones. Drugs have been used in there. I don't know if you've heard that, but the doctors have locks on their doors in a medical facility. So if you go for a chiropractic appointment, there's no reception, you can't use the restroom. You have to wait. I would usually just sort of cut through, come out on Rosemount, and we can't even walk in our own area of environment to enjoy it, to take our dogs for a walk, to go and use the quarry, because there's tents everywhere, and that's where they're living. So we're thinking of getting cameras in our yards. There was an incident of somebody hiding in bushes and putting a light at their window and yelling out names, obviously drug-induced, not sure where they were. So the concern isn't just the downtown core. This is rampant throughout Port Colborne, and we all need to be vigilant and watch out for one another. It's not safe on our streets. My husband will not allow me to ride my bike at night by myself. I can't go to the ATM anymore by myself. I can't walk my dogs at night by myself. We're afraid. We are definitely afraid. So something needs to be done. I'm glad that you had this forum for us tonight. Thank you.
Hold on 2 seconds in case there's some questions of members of council. Just a question for myself. You said it's rampant out there with tents. Have you personally seen those tents?
We have seen tents, and my nephew walks often out there, and he won't anymore because there is people squatting in that area. And that's the story they're all telling, is that they were sent there from the Toronto area.
That's a story that those people
Have
said
told.
to your nephew?
Yes. And at the Mapleview Clinic, when I went in to go for chiropractic, and I asked why the bathrooms were locked, so I'd walked there, but I went around, and she said because they're squatting there, that this was, the chiropractor said they're squatting there, and they have called the police because they are using their facility, and they had to keep the doors locked.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Desmarais and Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. This is certainly not to challenge what you're saying.
No.
Just for information's sake, who actually is being told that these people are being given bus tickets and sent here?
My nephew was told that, and when I was...
Your nephew, and you overheard that? Like,
he told me that
okay.
himself. Yeah, that's what he was told.
And is the same nephew that's counted the number of tents out there?
No, I'm not saying we counted the tent. I'm just saying there's a lot of people in there. And at the end of Sugarloaf Street, it's been told by a neighbor whose son lives towards the end of Sugarloaf Street. And he said that there was definitely a group of people tenting out there. And he has ordered surveillance cameras because they're coming on property.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Have you ever been told that there's people living and squatting out in those areas as police force?
No, it's not a policing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do on occasion receive calls.
Because we have been told several times that that's happening and not to go out in that area.
Since my time this year, I believe I've only received one call, and that was through the city and by law. So if we're not hearing about it otherwise.
All right.
But
one more question.
Yeah, I hadn't quite finished with that. I just want to let you know that we as a city have been aware of it, and it was my understanding that we had somebody going out there to look at that. Would that be correct? I think Sherry, maybe you could answer to that.
Mrs. Sampson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've been working with the Niagara Regional Police and the property owner with regards to the tents on the quarry property. And when it's on private property, we can't remove people unless the owner of the property requests people to be removed from their property.
Okay, if I may then, could we maybe make an effort to sort of spread that out a little bit and take a look at what's around there and maybe start working with some of the property owners, and possibly it may even be Wainfleet that needs to be worked with, because I understand that that the tenting has spread out that far. But because when I saw it, there were 9 tents. That's why I'm asking for a count.
Yeah, I didn't have
so
a count.
that was a few months ago. I think it was 2.5 months ago. Yeah. So if we could maybe make a little bit more of an effort, I think.
I was told that the property owner weren't local people. Is that correct?
I don't know.
That's what I was told as well when I was questioning it.
Mrs. Butters, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just was wondering, in the conversation that was had, that the people said, oh, we were sent here by
There's
bus.
one person in particular, I think
Okay.
I'm telling. Yeah.
Did they identify who is sending them?
No.
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else here? I think this gentleman? Is there anyone else other than this gentleman? Come forward, please. For the record, do we have your name and address?
Jesse Bowles. I'm the owner of Green Apple Coffee House on West Street. Used to be a resident of Port Colborne, was born and raised here, and I'm very proud to now have my business back here in Port Colborne. Hope to move back here very soon. Just a couple things to cover. I was one of the victims of being broken into at the beginning of June. An issue that I'm concerned about is the fact that this got to a boiling over point before there was real action taken. Mr. Mayor and Staff Sergeant, I appreciate you both visiting me at my business. I realized the statistics you had there was to tell me that crime was down. And what I reiterated to both of you was it may be down in reportings, but there's obviously a lot more businesses and residents being affected that aren't reporting because of the perception of a lack of action and the perception of a lack of consequences. So that goes back to the statistics really not being that accurate on what's truly happening. One thing that I'm really running into is harassment and loitering on the property where I have my business. I have 2 young female employees that I no longer feel safe having closed my shop. They've both encountered squatters in our back parking lot. I've installed security lighting there. I was speaking to my landlord yesterday actually, talking about possibly putting in a camera in back there, but again, really, if you're going to walk up to a camera to destroy it, you don't care whether you're being seen on camera sleeping on the back steps and harassing my employees. I really got concerned over all of this on Saturday night when there was a vehicle parked for a long period of time in front of my business. And when I went to close up and lock up and left, that vehicle proceeded to follow me. So we did a little dance through downtown as I took a little bit of evasive driving, turning this way and that way, and continued to meet back up with this vehicle. It was loitering in front of my shop on Victoria. Sorry, my shop's on West Street. It was loitering on Victoria. It was an idling by the Marsh property. Then it was idling back in front of my shop, and then down further on West. And when I circled around for the 4th time, it took off down Charlotte. So I did call that in. I reported it. It was a old Dodge Caravan, and I gave them the license plate number. I haven't heard anything back, but I did make the report because I know that's one of the big things. If we don't report it, nothing's going to happen. But something that I hear, being in a customer service-based industry, you hear a lot of talk. My shop is, I think, more than just a service to the community. It's kind of a community hub, and I always encourage that. So I do hear a lot, and people share with me when I'm there in the cafe, and this tent city is absolutely a huge issue. And if this is the first time that this is coming to a lot of people's attention, then respectfully, you really have your head in the sand in terms of Port Colborne and what's going on our outskirts and below the surface. I understand that it is a tricky issue when it is private property, and you can't simply shoo people along off private property. However, a solution that I thought of right off the bat is, one, is it a licensed campground? Obviously not. So is there bylaw workaround where we could clear this out or hold the property owner accountable through those channels. And the second channel I thought of is in a public health matter, is clearly there's not proper washroom facilities on this property. So if they're urinating and defecating on this plot of land that's abutting people's properties, then let's get public health involved and pressure that property owner to do something with their property through that avenue. I don't really have a report. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I thank you for opening it to those that didn't submit in to formally speak, but those are just a few things I jotted down through the course of tonight, and I thank you for letting me get up here.
Thank you, Jesse. Is there any questions of Jesse? Thank you very much for your intervention. Okay, this would appear that we have come to the end of our list. We have 4 written submissions from people who could not be with us tonight, which will form part of our record. So at this time, we have a motion by Mr. Elliott to receive this information, and the secondary, Mr. Danch. I'm sorry, Mr. Danch. Mrs. Demery claims all those in support of receiving this information this evening? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for coming. This concludes, you can stay longer because we do, and we have to, but we're almost at the end of this meeting, and then we move on to our general council meeting. So I think I'd call an adjournment or recess, perhaps for 5 minutes, to allow folks to depart if they so wish. Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant LaPointe, and where are we? Deputy Chief Flynn. So all we do is number 15.
Yeah, that's coming. You just call my name.
Pardon? Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to get late for everything. I've been waiting so long for that here to come on.
I'd like to.
Do we not pay our heating bill?
I'd like to reconvene the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole. We have one final item. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Madam Clerk? None. Thank you. I'd call for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Danch? Seconded by Mr. Main. Meeting is adjourned. Now, we will move on to the regular meeting of Council 21-18, held today, Monday, September 10th, following the Committee of the Whole meeting. Just calling that to order. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there is a bylaw that has been added to the agenda to accompany the road closure on Niagara Falls for the Niagara Falls Barrelman Triathlon event on September 16th.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion to confirm the agenda to include that addendum. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? There being none indicated, we shall record that, Madam Clerk. Call for a motion to adopt minutes. Maybe perhaps in bulk. We have a special meeting of Council 19-18 held on August 27, 2018, and B, a regular meeting of Council 20-18 held on August 27, 2018. Call for a motion to adopt those minutes. Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Main. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. There being none, move on to approval of items not requiring separate discussion. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Madam Clerk, do we have some proclamations?
Yes, there's one proclamation. It's the Public Rail Safety Week, September 23rd to 29th, 2018.
Call for a motion to issue that proclamation. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. There are no minutes of boards or commissioner committees. Are there any bylaws? I guess there's one that you referenced, Madam Clerk.
Yes, there are three bylaws tonight, actually.
Thank you.
6610-65-18, being a bylaw to close sections of various streets to vehicular traffic for the purpose of the 8th Annual Downtown Harvest Festival, and 6611-6618, being a bylaw to temporarily close sections of various streets to vehicular traffic for the purpose of the Niagara Falls Barrelman Triathlon, and 6612-67-18, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of September 10th, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd entertain a motion to approve those bylaws in bulk. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, second by Councillor Butters. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. This would appear that we have concluded the agenda. Call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance and participation in the public meeting especially.
If it weren't for you, we'd probably still